Yo, yo, yo. We back with a brand new Hockey Happy Hour. We're talking about the Central Division night, breaking that shit down. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. It's time to talk some puck. Let's fucking go.
Let's go! This ain't the fuck like oh, this thing he stinks!
Oh shit!
It's gone!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Hockey Happy Hour. I am Matt Cinsudi, along with the Darkwing Brian Daly.
What up?
The Broken One, Rob Povia.
Where do I see this ending? With me on top, like always.
And the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Brad Ryer. How is everybody tonight?
Miserable.
Ah, that good, huh? Good. We're off to a great start.
Yankees must be losing.
All right, then. And tonight, the Hockey Happy Hour.
Can somebody please tell me what a run is?
I don't know. The Phillies have only scored a couple of them in the last 3 games, so.
The Yankees haven't scored in 2 games in 3 innings now.
It's fun. Fun stuff, isn't it?
They even suck more than you guys do.
Yeah. Hey.
And once again, the Hockey Happy Hour brought to you by Manscaped. You get 20% off with the free shipping code right down there, as you see, A2D. You get 20% off plus free shipping with the code A2D at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code A2D at manscaped.com. It's time to throw out your old hygiene habits, gentlemen, and upgrade your life. Listen, confidence is key. Confidence is important, not just with the ladies, but also with everything in life. You want to feel confident in everything you do. And good hygiene in those sensitive areas, that definitely helps boost it a little bit. Because, you know what? Not only do the ladies not like this, you shouldn't like this. What is that, Bri?
Drunk funk.
Yeah. Don't like junk funk. Get rid of that. Don't be a junk funk friend. Get rid of that crap. Get the lawnmower and do yourself a favor and upgrade your life.
My greatest purchase this year so far.
All right,
That body spray smells real good,
A
though.
lawnmower in a sensitive area.
Yes,
We'll say
sir.
that body spray smells real good.
And the poll question for tonight, brought to you by BetUS, is the leading online sportsbook that has been in the market for over 25 years. You can bet anywhere in the U.S. on everything. You can use the link that you see down there below, and you'll get 125% of a sign-up bonus. So you'll have yourself a little bit of credit stash there, and then after that, you feel good about it. Maybe throw a few bucks around, and next thing you know, you make yourself a little quick cash on the side. BetUS, best place to go. You can bet on everything, and you can bet anywhere. So check it out. And the poll question for today is, the Avalanche have no competition in the Central. Agree or disagree? Gentlemen, do you believe that the current reigning and defending Stanley Cup champions going into this season have no equal in their division? Take it away.
I'll go first. No, I don't think they do. I mean, the closest you're going to come is probably the Minnesota Wild. You can maybe argue the St. Louis Blues, but if we're talking like straight division winners, it's Colorado. And even without Nazem Kadri, this is still very dangerous, very strong. Colorado Avalanche team. But no, I don't think anybody's gotten better in that division. But I don't think and many teams have gotten worse. But to be on the level of the Colorado Avalanche, the defending Stanley Cup champs, there's nobody in that division that can touch them right now.
All right. I will. I'll take this one here. I think that the Avalanche, it's hard to really find a team that's their equal. It just seems like they've got this division pretty solidly in control. I think it's going to be one of those things where the Avalanche might be in a position where they kind of sit in first place. Maybe, just maybe, you might have a surprise at the very beginning of the year. But that's at the very beginning of the year when you haven't really got anything solidified. But after that, it's probably going to be Colorado, kind of like Vegas was in the Pacific for a few years, just hovering in first place. And it's like, yeah, no one's really touching them because they got the division locked down right now.
You know, boys, I'm on the other. Oh, go ahead, Brian. Finish your point.
I was going to say real quick. I mean, if you think about it, most of the Central Division is either staying put or they're rebuilding.
That's a good point.
Go ahead, Robbie.
Well, I'm glad you made that point because that further puts me on the opposite side on this poll. And I'm not saying you're wrong and I'm right, but I disagree, man. I think there's a lot of teams that are in contention. I'm not really pleased with the way Colorado has, operated this offseason in terms of they had a lot of potential pieces that could depart, and they haven't really locked down anybody. I mean, they still have that strong core. I get that. That core is not going anywhere, but you're not going to be as complete of a team. And I think that's going to allow other teams like a St. Louis team that was very highly competitive last year, 109 points, like the Minnesota Wild and God's gift to hockey and Kaprizov. There's a lot of talent between those two teams. And then I think Dallas and Nashville have had pretty good off seasons. I mean, specifically Nashville locking down Forsberg for 8 years. That was an extension that needed to be done. And I think if their goaltender Saros takes the next step like they're expecting him to do, they could be a real dark horse in that division. So I'm going to have to disagree with the poll. I think there is competition in the Central for the Avalanche. They may still win it, but it won't come as easy as it did. I mean, if you call a 6-point lead in the division easy, but as they coasted towards the playoffs, it was certainly an easy ride.
Brad, how do you feel about that?
I disagree. I think that Colorado is going to have some competition. I think that's a pretty tough division. A lot of good teams in that division. They're not going to be able to take a night off. A couple of things of note. First of all, their goaltender is not good. You guys can tell me whatever you want about Georgiev. Okay? He stinks. He's not good. Okay, they gave Kemper. They got rid of Kemper. Okay, and got Georgiev. They're cost cutting and salary cap moves. And I'm going to tell you something. Okay, Rangers had a pretty good defense last season. Did they not?
Yes, sir.
I thought they did. Georgiev was terrible. Okay, he had, in my opinion, he had 2 or 3 really good games and 1 great game in all his starts. Okay, the rest of them were terrible. His great game was the Carolina game when he shut out Carolina 1-0 in Carolina, where the Rangers got completely outclassed and really clobbered, but they couldn't beat Georgiev in that one game. When Shesterkin was hurt, Georgiev played pretty well. But he, for the most part, was not good. So I don't trust him as far as I can spit. They're not going to have Kadri. I think the team's going backwards a little bit. I mean, they still have a great team. Don't get me wrong, but they're, will they win the division? Yeah, they probably will. But St. Louis is a pretty darn good hockey team, and Minnesota. I know they got rid of Fiala, basically for nothing, which was it was that was like a Vegas Golden Knights kind of move. Some of these teams that were over the cap gave away some players, which, I just can't understand some of that stuff. But they just gave away players and got nothing in return for them. And Minnesota I think, takes a little step back there. Not sure about their goaltending situation. Who's their goalie now?
Fleury.
He is going to be their goalie. I mean, he's kind of getting a little long in the tooth. He's going to stay healthy for the whole season.
Did last year.
I mean, I know, but when you're old, that's the problem when you have when you have a team that's old. The guys don't always play all the games, and I just don't know how many games he's going to be able to play at his age. What's he play, 50 maybe?
That's still pretty good for a 38-year-old goaltender.
Yeah, but who plays the other 33? Who plays the other 32 though?
Whoever their backup is. I don't know who their backup is at the moment.
Yeah, well, but no, that's what I'm saying though. It's. I mean, I'd be concerned about them. I think they come in fourth, Minnesota.
I mean, well, let me put this out there real quick.
St. Louis is going to give them all they can handle.
Let me put this out there real quick. It seems to be a trend every year, and it's getting more and more. I mean, unless you have a solid, legit franchise goaltender, name me a team that doesn't have a platoon goalie system. That your goalies are pretty much split in 41 and 41. That's probably what's going to happen in Minnesota now too. They did it last year with Cam Talbot and Marc-Andre Fleury. They're going to do it again this year. They have no choice.
I just wonder about Cam Talbot. Is he going to have the kind of year this year that he had last year?
Well, it's not going to be Minnesota's problem. He's in Ottawa now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's okay. I don't know who their backup goalie is, honestly.
I'm actually looking at it right now.
Okay. Yeah, because that's I don't know. I'm Minnesota. I think takes a little bit of a step back. I just think that having a goalie that age, being your number one, your goaltender one, that's going to be tough. He's a guy that's that old is not going to play all the games.
Philip Gustafson. At least he's the one that's on the roster right now. I mean, you also have to remember. I think Minnesota really is just putting a bandage together for Jesper Wallstedt, who's their big goalie pickup. What was it, maybe 2 years ago now in the draft? And they expect him to be an elite level goaltender. So, I mean.
Wait, is he the guy that they drafted in the first round?
I think he fell to the second.
There was a goalie that was picked in the first round a couple of years ago. That wasn't the guy?
I don't think so. I'm going to look that up.
There was a goalie that was picked in the first round, though, like 2 years ago, right?
Oh, probably. There's usually one. There was a Russian goaltender taken in the first round 2 years ago. I forget his name.
Yeah, I just remember I just didn't know if it was him or not.
Anthony has some breaking news saying that the Buffalo Sabres made a move. They just bought a new Zamboni and Puss. So some big moves going on out there in Buffalo land. Just letting everybody know.
Sign Riley Sheehan, though.
Yes, they did. They did sign Riley Sheehan. How long was that contract? Was it 2 years?
What was 4?
4? Okay.
I mean, I could be wrong. I thought it was 4, but it could be 2. I know that they signed him and that he's going to be there for a while. So they actually did do something.
He actually was number 20 overall.
Okay.
We'll see if he can reestablish himself like he did with Pittsburgh. Hopefully not.
But I do hear your point though, Brad. Father Time is undefeated, and eventually it comes calling for you. I'm impressed with the level of saves that Fleury can still make at this age, though, in terms of making that phenomenal game-changing save.
No question. Listen, the guy's a first ballot Hall of Fame goaltender. I have no question about that. What I'm saying is, at the age of 37. How many games can you reasonably expect him to play? And how many games can you expect him to really be at the top of his game? Because when you get that old, you start getting inconsistent. We've all seen it. I mean, as a Ranger fan, I saw it with Lundqvist. him kind of falling apart right before your eyes. After he was 35, it seemed like he was having more and more bad games. The team was getting worse and he was getting worse. And that's why I'm not crazy about Minnesota right now. St. Louis has goaltending. They're good. I would definitely put them in there. I think that it wouldn't take a lot for them to have a really, really sensational type of season. Could they beat Colorado? Yeah, maybe. Dallas now. Anthony Adis was saying Adis. I'm not sure how you pronounce your name, Anthony. I call it the Dallas Stars. They've got a good goalie. They really have a good goalie. My question is with them, will they score enough goals? Because they can shut you down for sure, but will they be able to score?
I'm not worried about them. They got a ton of good scoring prospects in training camp, and they're apparently still in on Patrick Kane. So you're gonna get goal scoring if they can land Kaner.
Yeah, that's true. But as of right now, I will put them fourth. I put Nashville third, and Nashville also has elite goaltending, and they finally made the move with Forsberg. It's about freaking time.
Well,
and he's going to be on the team for a long time. And they're one of these years that team is going to really, really come out and have a sensational season. They've got guys. It just seems like they sometimes are a little inconsistent. But if their goalie stays healthy, that's a good team. So I don't think the Avs are just going to run away and hide in this division. I think that they're going to have a battle every time they have to play a division game, except for when they play the two what do you want to call it? The two garbage cans in Chicago and Arizona.
Oh, well.
Right.
I mean, what an embarrassment those two teams are, especially Arizona. Or should we call them Arizona State?
Arizona State.
I think we should just call them Arizona State.
The Arizona State Coyotes? Okay, gotcha. All right, that's what they'll be for now.
They deserve that kind of abuse. Don't you think?
Huh?
When you wind up having the crappy ownership that they've had over the last few decades,
Oysters.
you kind of do,
Shixas and shysters.
Do they even have owners right now? I'm pretty sure they're owned by the NHL. I don't remember anybody buying them.
They do. They have some tycoon who owns like hotels and a few. I think he owns a piece of one of the casinos in Vegas.
The reason why they're playing at the college university is because of monies owed by that owner, like bills unpaid by that owner. So I'd assume that I mean, there was some talk about the state like absorbing them and absorbing their debt and getting them in a new stadium, but I never materialized. And then all of a sudden, Ted, actually, one of our longtime listeners, chimed in with that, announcing that they were going to be playing at the university on not even be able to put their own logo on center ice. Like, that's just an embarrassment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might end up being a pretty interesting race too, for the bottom between Chicago and. The problem is Chicago still has Seth Jones and they still have Patrick Kane. So, they're going to have to unload those two if they want to get to Coyote level.
Twinkle Toes, too.
If they want to get Coyote ugly, they got to get rid of those two guys.
It's been a while since you heard Twinkle Toes, hasn't it, Matt?
It has been a minute. It's been a while. Yeah. You're not used to hearing it now that it's not so prevalent to see the Blackhawks in the postseason anymore.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to show the man a little respect. He was battling an illness for a while, but you're back, so now take the abuse.
Right. Had no choice now. We got Tom chiming in saying he agrees to the poll. He's also saying, "What's up? What's up, Tommy?" We had Greg earlier saying, "What's up, fellas? Agree to the poll." And then we also had Jake also saying, "What's up? I'm going to agree with the poll on this one." So everybody, for the most part, is agreeing on this. And then
I like how it was split down the middle between the four of us, and in the comments too. Is a good poll.
Yeah. And
Because it can go a couple different ways, and everybody brought up good valid points. So,
yep.
But, I mean, the Blues are a really good team. The Blues were in that series with Colorado, by the way, until their goalie got run into.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Kadri incident,
The Kadri incident,
as we like to call that.
Well, Kadri is always doing something to get himself in trouble in the playoffs. Yeah, he's lucky. He's lucky they didn't suspend him. You know, I think they may have felt sorry for him because you know he kind of felt bad about it this time and wasn't arrogant about it. So I think that's why he didn't get suspended. But you can make the argument that was not exactly the cleanest of plays.
Nah, he was leaned into.
Yeah, right.
Supposedly.
Of course he was. Yeah,
I will say this: as we get further and further away from those playoffs, a lot of people, especially I'm sure Blues fans, will go back to that moment and will say that could have been our year too. But you know what? Colorado just had to be dirty and throw, because you always have those stories of, like, oh, that team cheated in that series. We know they cheated in that series. They pulled that shit and cost us our year. It's like, I'm sure it wasn't your year all the same, because I'm sure if St. Louis had made it to the finals, watch Tampa three-peat. But in the same point, my point is that we're always going to have, as we get further and further away, St. Louis fans are going to talk about that moment, and they're going to hate Kadri forever. And also, watch Kadri be a St. Louis Blue before his career is over. Anyway.
I mean, wherever he winds up next, he's going to wind up in a long-term deal, so that's probably never going to happen anyway.
Who knows? Maybe at the very tail end of his career, hanging on for one more ride, he winds up with the Blues. Who knows? It's just funny how those things play out, Anyway.
Well, he's an example of why it's going to be hard to make big trades now, like Kane, because nobody has the money to get him on their team.
That is true.
That's the problem. I mean, the Islanders are dying to get him, but if they get him, they got to trade Barzell to be able to make room for him, and they can't do that.
They can always retain salary. They can always trade salary too. So I mean, it's not impossible. And if Chicago does make a deal like that where they have to get rid of Kane, they're gonna have to take somebody back, because they're gonna have to figure out a way to get that salary back as well. So they're gonna have to take a bad contract.
It's $10.5 million, and you can keep up to 50% of that contract. So Calgary. What am I saying? The Blackhawks could, in theory, trade him and still keep $55,250,000.
Right.
Of that they can retain that on their cap.
Right.
But still, it's still $5,250,000 at this point in the off season is a lot. That's a big contract now, and there's not that many teams that can fit him with that kind of a cap. That's the problem. That's what makes it very hard to make trades early in the season and right before preseason. That's what makes it hard to do that. That's why you see so many trades happening, like beginning in January, when the caps all start going down. I mean, that's when you see it. Other than that, I mean, it's really hard. It is.
But in order to make that work, though, it's like I'm saying, is they're going to have to take a bad contract. They're going to have no choice. If they get what they want, they're going to have to take somebody's contract off their hands. Like, and I'm just throwing this out there because it's probably the best analogy right now, is if they say Kane gets traded to the Flyers, Chicago will probably take half of that contract, and they would probably have to take JVR's contract on top of whatever else they're getting in return.
They'd get more if they took JVR's contract, if they did that right now.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But they would figure out a way to make it work. It's not impossible.
No, I understand where you're going. The Flyers aren't going to do that, though, because I think if JVR has any kind of a decent season, if they do that, they're throwing away a chance to get a first-round pick. And the Flyers need as many first-round picks as they can get.
Oh no, I'm not saying that he's going to the Flyers. I know he's got no shot at going to the Flyers, but I was just using him as an example
Yeah. No, you're right.
Because it's like that perfect scenario for what we're talking about.
Right. I mean, that's kind of
All
how
right.
it works.
Yeah, and I see JVR being traded at the deadline anyway.
All right, gentlemen. So with that, let's get started in on our Central Division preview. We kind of already got going on that, but we might as well dive into it team by team and take a look and see what kind of seasons we're looking at for these respective franchises in the Central Division. But first, for everyone out there who's commenting in from the fan, we thank you very much. As always, you guys are the lifeblood of A2D. We would be nothing without you. And they are brought to you by Gleason's Bar, located at 6700 Mill Creek Ave in Levittown, PA. Use promo code A2D for 10% off your order whenever you dine in, take out, or you go online at Gleason'sBarandSteaks.com. So get yourself something nice to eat if you're ever in the Levittown, PA area. And, use that code for A2D. Get yourself a little discount on top of it. And the first period brought to you by eXp Realty. If you are looking to buy or sell a home, or you have a change in career or brokerage, contact Alan Foy at eXp Realty LLC at 302-682-8820, or visit him at alan.foy at exprealty.com. It's a big step in life when you're planning on making a big move or you're changing over careers. You want to do it right. Go to Alan Foy, eXp Realty LLC, and make sure it's done right. Okay, gentlemen, so let's dive into the Central Division. And we might as well start with, Anthony was talking about how he wanted to see the Winnipeg Jets win their Central. Why don't we start with them? Gentlemen, the Winnipeg Jets, the only Canadian team in the Central Division, ironically enough. How do you guys feel about them? Where do you see them? Because I kind of see them middle pack. Do you guys see them in a different place?
Yeah, they got a lot of work to do, man. A lot of work to do.
They're sixth.
I could see that solid 6. I mean, they didn't do nothing this offseason after missing the Cup playoffs for the first time since I want to say like 2016, 2017. Like they were regularly in there. They miss it and they do nothing. And then you got your stars, Scheifele and Dubois, really just questioning the futures with the organization. So, they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, they do. They do.
All right.
I mean,
if you compare them to one of their counterparts in Canada, Calgary, look at all the work Calgary did after they had to trade Kachuk, and after they lost Johnny Hockey. I mean, what a great job they did in rebuilding their team after what happened.
Yep. B-Dales, tell me this real quick. Is my gift game not on point?
oh, your gift game is on point right now, Brody.
I love you, Priz. Anyway, continue.
Oh, yeah. You better get his ass in here. He better stop fucking around.
It all goes down in the chat, people. It all goes down in the chat.
No, we love Priz. Priz is our boys here. One of our boys here.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at the roster now. I'm not counting them out. I don't think they're in a bad position. They have some young guys they need to get situated here for them to be back in the swing of things. But, I mean, I know Blake Wheeler's getting a little bit older. Scheifele's getting a little bit older. Nikolai Ehlers is, discussing his future with this organization. But I mean, you still got some really good players on this roster, being led by Kyle Connor and Cole Perfetti. So I think as long as this roster maintains those 5 or 6 players, they're gonna compete. On the back end, they're not terrible. Josh Morrissey's a solid defenseman. Nate Schmidt can still play. Neil Pionk is showing that he can play. So there's pieces in place here. It's how long is this future going to be moving? What is that noise?
It sounds like there's some echo going on.
My dog barking. Do you hear a dog barking?
I do
No,
now.
I think it's
No,
from
it's
the
definitely
show.
feedback.
Okay, I was just making sure I wasn't the only one hearing that. The voices in my head have been quiet for a while, so I was just making sure they weren't coming back. But yeah, no, I mean, I see Winnipeg being a middle of the road type of team. I think they'll compete for a wild card spot, but that's about as high as they're going to get.
Well, let me ask you a question. What are they going to get out of Connor Hellebuyck this year?
Well, he's going to be a question mark. I think
He had an off year last year.
I think they're going to get average numbers out of him. I don't think he's going to be bad. Let me look at his numbers from last year.
He had a rough year last year compared to some of his stats. I mean, he was pretty close to being an all-star for a while.
I mean, his numbers aren't terrible. He has goals against under 3 and a save percentage of .910. Solid numbers.
That's not bad. That's bad. Okay, so he wasn't as bad as I thought he was.
No, I mean, I'm sure he's had flashes of looking bad last year, but I mean, his numbers are right on par from where they've been. So he's been very consistent. So
it just seems to me he was that he can be better than that, because I've seen him at his best when he's on top of his game. He's a very, very good goaltender.
Oh, the defense will definitely have to step up in front of him. I think that's been a big issue with them the last couple of years too, is replacing some of the guys that they've lost. You know, you lose Dustin Byfuglien, and that's gonna kill you.
Oh, they traded Trouba too. I mean, listen, I know you're talking about Pionk, and he's not a bad little defenseman. But I mean, if you look at Trouba, I mean, compared to Neil Pionk, it's a big difference. It really is. I mean,
oh, it's two different solid defensemen right there. I mean, you also have Logan Stanley too, who's showing that he can play. So I'm not too worried. Like I said, I think this is a middle of the road team. They're going to compete for a wild card spot, and that's probably about as high as they're going to get in this division, at least.
Yeah, I just don't see them finishing higher than 6th right now. I just don't. I can't see it happening unless one of the big four, or one of the big four gets plagued with injuries. It's a pretty good division.
It is a good division, and I think a lot of it's going to depend on what are you getting out of Pierre-Luc Dubois this year. I mean, you only have him on a 1-year contract. What's up, Troy?
Hey,
I think he's going to have a great year. I think he's going to go all out and go crazy.
They need him to have a monster year. I think he's kind of underachieved since being there.
To get paid, and if he expects to get paid, he's going to have to go out there and light the lamp. So I would think that he would be real good this year.
He wants to raise his value to get the fuck out.
Yeah,
he's going to be a free agent after this year. So he hears the cash register every time he scores. You're going to hear cha-ching.
Well, I mean, he got a nice contract for this year from Winnipeg. So
yeah, but he's going to want. But a guy like him, he's going to want probably like a Hayes contract, like 7 years, $50 million.
He's got 1 year, $6 million. So,
okay. But if he wants to get something like that, he's going to have a very, very solid year.
I mean, I think you're going to get that out of him this year.
I mean, he's got a ton of ability. He's not a stiff by any stretch of the imagination.
I mean, 81 games last year. He's put up 60 points. I think he's got to break that 30-goal mark to really get maybe that extra mil that he may or may not be looking for. But, I mean, solid numbers all around for an 81-game, 24-year-old second liner. He's got to bring the penalty minutes down. He's got to be more disciplined.
Don't you think the guy's got enough talent to be a number one, though? I mean,
I absolutely do.
He has enough talent to be a first-line player. There's no question about that.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, just right now, I just got to keep in mind he's still 24 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. I just don't think they have enough. I don't think they have enough. Defensively, they're just not good enough.
All right, so the Jets, interesting. It'll be something to keep our eyes on as the season goes along. Will they ultimately be 6th, like some of us are saying, or will they be hovering around a wild card spot and causing some headaches for some teams who want to make the playoffs? All right, then. So on to from Winnipeg. We now head to, since Rosca's talking about Will Taves and Kane be traded, we might as well dive into a team that'll probably either be occupying second to last or dead last in that division. The Chicago Blackhawks. Might as well get them out of the way now while we got the chance. So, gentlemen, obviously, I think we were all in agreement that Chicago is going to be lower in the division. Do you think they take dead last, or do you think they take second to last? And what do you think about trade opportunities for them? Do you think that they get those trades done during the deadline, or do you think they might get them off earlier?
Depends on their start of the season as far as the trades go. It depends on how they go. I mean, I don't think – I think they made a lot of fresh moves early, especially during the draft. So I'm not – I think they should have held on to a couple pieces, but I think they did pretty well in the draft this past year. I know Priz is probably going to say otherwise, but I don't think Chicago is going to be as terrible as people think they are. Especially if some of these players develop. I mean, they've already made some really big moves, and there's obviously at least one, maybe two more on the way. I don't think that with some of the moves they made this offseason, they're going to be worse than Arizona.
What do you think happens to Seth Jones?
Honestly, I think this year he stays put. I don't think he's going anywhere yet. I mean, you brought him in for a reason.
He may be good enough to keep them out of last place.
I think that entire roster right now is good enough to keep them out of last place. Arizona's not good.
No, Arizona's horrible.
And especially if they trade Chikrin before training camp, they're really going to be in a tough spot.
Well, then they're going to end up being the team with Bedard.
Probably.
No matter how many guys Chicago trades, if they trade him, Arizona trades him, there's just nobody left on that roster.
Well,
I mean, they have a couple of
Chicago or Arizona
players, but they have a couple of guys that are okay. But I mean, they're just not good.
Chicago or Arizona?
Chicago, no, Arizona. They're just.
I was going to say I know me and Robbie have talked about this. We've talked about the possibility of the lottery being rigged. If Arizona does wind up finishing dead last, I don't know if they're going to put a player of that caliber in a market that is severely struggling. So I think this year will honestly determine how rigged this lottery really is.
Interesting. Definitely something to look at when we get to the lottery. Dylan's chiming in saying, "What's going on, guys? What's going on, Dylan?" Says, "Hope all is well. Agree to the poll. Avs are the team to beat."
Right on. Yeah, I mean, I look at the Chicago Blackhawks, and yeah, I see what their plan is. You know, they're trying to acquire picks, they're trying to rebuild, but in my opinion, they got nothing back in return in terms of usable pieces for this year, just the picks, and not the greatest picks at that. When you let the Prinkett go, you'd think that they'd want to maybe try to keep, maybe extend an offer to Dylan Strome, for example, or Kirby Doc. Are trading him. They got picks for him or whatnot, but Kubiak, they should have offered one of them at least. You know what I mean? They're really, really, really tearing it down. So it's going to be a very rough transitional year for Chicago. And I just don't see them rebuilding as swiftly as, say, like the New York Rangers team did or a Colorado Avalanche team did, because they just don't have the greatest of picks in the mean term either. And to response to Brian's point, yeah, I think the lottery is severely rigged, but I will say this, though, and we've seen it in other sports. If you need to revitalize a market, you can do so by, acquiring that superstar through the draft. We've seen it in the NFL. We've seen it in the NBA, specifically. I mean, you think about, like, like OKC for example. I mean, I'm not the biggest basketball mind, but that's the first example that comes to mind. When they got Westbrook and Kevin Durant through the draft and shit like that, and you can really make a turnaround in an area. So I don't know if that would be the rationale for them getting effed out of a first play, number one draft pick, but good Lord knows I'd love to see it, and I'd love it to come Philadelphia's way.
Yeah.
0-82. 0-82.
Cheers, Maddie.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at the roster, there's good pieces here. You went out and get not just Anthony Ciu and Max Domi in free agency. Solid pickups, but they're not going to make this a winning franchise. You still have Patrick Kane, who's going to pull a hole when they finally trade him. They bring in Taylor Radish in a trade with Tampa Bay. I forget who went the other way from Chicago, but you still have Jonathan Taves. So I think this is going to be a key landing spot here for maybe a Connor Bedard. Should they rig it in Chicago's favor? Imagine a Connor Bedard and Jonathan Taves. I mean, defensively, they're not looking bad. They got Seth Jones on one end, Jacob McCabe, Connor Murphy. Riley Stillman is still a young defenseman that still needs to grow a little bit, but they're not in terrible shape. The only thing I'm worried about is the one thing that that Brad brought up with a couple teams that we've talked about already, and that's goaltending. And there's, as of right now, their starter is Peter Mrazek.
Yeah, which they had to sign there, even though it cost them. That's an example of draft positioning that it cost them. It really let the Maple Leafs off the hook.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. By the way, quick question: is a radish a vegetable? I think it is. Right?
Yes.
Good. Now I know what to call him. I know what to call Taylor Radish. I'm going to call him the vegetable from this point forward.
Good question.
No, I'm not even going to go there. Oh my God, I got to censor myself there. It wouldn't have gotten us in trouble, but it was severely too soon.
Okay, then. Good looking out, Rob.
Heart goes out to the Ann Heche family.
It is actually a root vegetable, which is still a vegetable.
Good. So then, yes, I will call him the vegetable from this point forward. That's what his name shall be.
Oh, Lord.
All right.
We're getting some serious feedback tonight. What the hell is up with this?
I don't know.
I think sometimes when you hook up to the streaming services, if you I get this on Zoom a lot more, where normally I don't have to plug in headphones and it doesn't, pick up the audio from other people talking. Once in a while, it's buggy like that. Maybe we're having a StreamYard issue on one of our ends.
Could be.
I know it ain't me. I got Bluetooth, yeah. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go take a siesta and still listen to your all conversation.
Hey.
That's when I told the chat. That's when I told the chat that they can talk shit on Rob because he'll be able to hear everything, but he can't say anything.
Screw you, Maddie.
Dylan saying also got some insider news. The guy who runs Cap Friendly said the story of the Flames owner having rough end to their relationship with Gaudreau is true, as it is confirmed Johnny was about to re-sign with Calgary until his wife interrupted the call and cried, saying he wanted to go home. Murray called him out on wasting their time, and that's why they couldn't circle back to bring him back. Once Johnny found out the Flames and the Flyers were out, his agent scrambled, calling other teams. And then, obviously, the rest, they say, is history. He wound up in Columbus.
Still don't know how that happened.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. So, now that we have covered the Chicago Blackhawks, time for us to move forward here. We might as well just get the last other team out of the way. Arizona, real quick, dead last. I think we can all pretty much say that. I mean, besides Chikrin and who's the other pup they've got?
They've got a few.
They have
Nemeth.
Demuth. Okay, yeah, that's
They
right.
just drafted him. They got him signed to a entry-level deal. They have Nick Schmaltz,
Schmaltz,
Clayton
okay.
Keller, Barrett
Keller.
Hayden.
Keller was the one I was thinking of. But anyway, keep going, Brian.
Yeah, they just
Cruz
brought
is
in.
not a bad player either.
I'm just trying to see, like, this again. It's again. This is a roster that doesn't look terrible, but they just can't put it together. I mean, defensively, I think they're still a bit of a mess. They still have a lot to work out here. I mean, I
Yeah, I
like
mean,
Troy
their
Stecher, but
best player right now is Clayton Keller. Clearly,
offensively, absolutely
he's
no
clearly
doubt.
he is clearly their best player. Schmaltz isn't bad. Cruz isn't bad either. I mean, they've done a few decent young players, but they're a god awful team.
Hey, Pete, how's it going, man? And he does agree to the poll. Yeah, I mean, Colorado, obviously, we can sit here and bash on them for hours with just terrible ownership and the fact that the team, unfortunately, has suffered for it in the long run because, boy, have they put some bad seasons out there on the ice. But who knows? Maybe some of the young players have themselves a few decent nights here and there, and they try to develop into something. But boy, it's not the best time. Although there hasn't been too many great times to be a Coyotes fan. But
They had Shane Doan all those years. They had some decent teams.
they did. They had some okay teams, But for the most part, it's been a rough go of it. For the most part.
The curse of leaving Winnipeg.
What's up?
The curse of leaving Winnipeg.
Yeah. You leave Winnipeg, small Canadian market, go to a supposedly stable American market with a stable American dollar, and put a okay product out in the 90s, put a shit product out in the early 2000s, and
they were led at one time by Jeremy Roenick and Shane Doan. I mean, it's amazing how that team has fallen on such awful times.
Yeah. Roenick
Yeah,
left
think
to go.
about that roster. You also had Cliff Ronning.
Yeah,
they had the Nikolai Happy Bolin in his prime.
Yep.
They had.
By the way, has anybody heard anything about Phil Kessel? Is he signed anywhere yet?
Yep.
No, I haven't heard anything about that.
Interesting. I wonder where he's going to end up. If he's going to end up having to do a PTO like our old friend from the Rangers, Derek Stepan, who I hear just got a PTO invitation with Carolina.
Yeah. Which is, I'm really surprised because I thought he had a solid year for Carolina last year. To sign him on a PTO, kind of a questionable move, in my opinion, anyway.
No, I'm just wondering because nobody signed him yet, and he may have to do that to be able to hook on with the team. He may have to show the league that he can still play.
I know.
That's what those PTOs are for. They.
We look at oh crap, who was it?
Well, my team a few years ago went and signed Fedotenko, Ruslan Fedotenko. I'm sure you remember him.
Oh yeah.
With your guys, they tried. Yep. They had him on a PTO, and he played real well for the Rangers when he was with them.
And EJW Ski saying they should move the Coyotes to Hartford because hockey market might be better, or move them somewhere north.
I still say moving back to Quebec.
Quebec.
Bring back the whale.
Yeah, bring back the whale. I mean, honestly, I've said this before. I honestly believe this. If I don't think they're going to want to realign the league again, so I honestly believe if they move the Coyotes, it's going to be to another southern market, Houston. And I think Houston would be the option, honestly. Out of all the choices that they have now, since they've already got Vegas taken care of, yeah, I think they would go Houston. That's my opinion on it because they don't want to leave the Western markets and they want to not have an open spot in the Central Division and have to realign the league again. Because
Well, I mean,
Detroit
that's why Quebec would make
requested.
sense too.
What's up?
Quebec would make sense for that
I'm-
option too.
I'm not saying that Quebec wouldn't be a great option. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just I think I just think Batman and the league don't want to deal with realignment again. Because
No,
Detroit,
No, Matty, that's what I'm saying. If they move them to Quebec, they won't have to realign it because they would still
Right.
be in the Central.
Hartford, they would. That's why it's
Right.
not a feather in their cap there. But Quebec, they could remain there.
They could remain in the Central.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I guess.
Nah. Bring it back to Hartford. Send Detroit back.
Yeah, Matty, we're on the same page here, just in two different cities.
okay. All right then. So we'll move them back to Quebec. The Nordiques will come back and they'll be in the Central Division. And watch the Nordiques win the division in their first year, and they go win a cup in their first year in existence. And they beat Colorado in the Western Conference Finals to get to that Stanley Cup final.
That would be poetic justice now, wouldn't
Yes, super poetic justice.
They need. It's not. And like a lot of people say that the market's not good in Arizona. It's not. I think the ownership has been what's killed the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah, their ownership is terrible.
Yeah, it
They
doomed them right from the
just
start.
don't give a crap.
He also goes on to say Coyotes New Orleans might work, but that could screw up alignment, like you said. Quebec, I like.
Texas, New Orleans. It's it's not too far away.
Same difference.
And Dylan also said, to add on to his Flames thing, he also said that Zito is seen as a joke of a GM in Florida after the Kachuk deal. Montreal's GM actually called Brad Treliving to congratulate him on fleecing Florida.
I'd have to.
I was talking about
agree.
last week, Matty.
Yes, you did.
I would have to agree. That was a fleece of a deal for Calgary. They got a haul back.
They did. Dylan said also the most unattractive franchise to play in the league currently is Winnipeg. That's interesting.
It's not us.
That's always Kessel going back to the Pens.
That's what Anthony's saying.
Players.
I mean,
double their investment in Geritol if they do that.
Listen, I mean the Pens. I'm surprised they haven't already. So yeah. John saying no Quebec, and then he also went on to say cue up the Whalers song.
My man, yeah, John.
Blaine Stoughton.
And Anthony's saying I want to see the
Who was it? Deneen?
Kevin
What was
Deneen,
Deneen's
yeah.
first name? Kevin?
Kevin Deneen, yeah. Bill Deneen was his dad.
Him and Ron Francis. Those three guys were. That was their first line for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Before they moved to Carolina, that wasn't a bad team.
Friend of the show, Chris Pronger.
Yep.
So, hang on.
What?
What?
So, I like
goal too.
I like this page. You should give them a follow. They're called Puck Umpire on Instagram. They do a great job. So we started talking about Chikrin. Well, apparently the Senators and the Coyotes are in talks right now, and Arizona wants 2 firsts, a high-end prospect, and Zaitsev for Chikrin.
That's way too much.
Ottawa is probably going to.
I disagree. Chikrin's still 24 years old.
Yeah, but that's way too much. Chikrin's not Chikrin. That's like making like he's a top 5 defenseman in the league. He's not.
When he's healthy, he's a top 10 defenseman in the league.
I think
He's
Ottawa.
a top 10 defenseman when he's 100%. His biggest problem right now is that he's not 100%.
What was it? You said 2 firsts, right?
2 firsts, a high-end prospect, and Zaitsev.
I think the firsts maybe they might want them to knock one off. I mean, that might be the only thing that might be like, nah, that's too much.
But here's my question.
If it was just 2 picks, I'd like it better.
Right.
What
Like a
years
first
are
and a
they,
second
though?
or something.
But that's the question. What years are these first rounders? Are they going to be 2024? Are they going to be 2025?
Well, Ottawa already gave up their first round pick for this year, didn't they?
They gave up their first round pick for last year.
Yeah, but didn't they give up their first for this year too?
Is it the Brickett deal?
Nope. They only gave up
No.
one first in the Brinkett deal.
Oh, okay.
But they got somebody. No, that's right. They got Giroux. That was a free agent. Okay.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah.
My bad.
EJ
I
Dub,
thought they were missing too, but you're probably right.
It was so funny when Brian made that point of we don't know which years the draft picks are for. I felt like I did the Roethlisberger gift. I was like, ooh, okay.
EJ Dub saying, could Flyers get Phil Kessel, or they are so capped out they can't?
Nope, they're tapped out, baby. They are tapped out.
No,
And then-
and that wouldn't be a smart thing for them to do.
If anything, they would give Kessel a PTO if they had the space, but they don't. Swoopy, what's up, brother? Just saying what's going on. And then Anthony's asking who got traded. Nobody got traded, but there's talks between Ottawa and Arizona over Chikrin. All right.
Thanks
Just
for
all
joining us,
rumors at
gentlemen,
this
as
point right now.
always.
Absolutely.
And Swoopy saying again, why is Brad the New York? Who allowed to always come on Philly sports talk shows so often? He hates Philly. Replace him with Philly sports fans.
Yeah, I know. You gave me a hard time last night too.
We enjoy the cross perspectives, baby. And I mean, Jesus, I'm mixed up in the head myself. I'm all over the place. I'm Philly. I'm New York. I'm all over the place. So I'm no better.
Just remember, somebody has to make sure that there's an even keeled person who isn't a homer.
No homerism.
Oh, I see.
Just real talk.
So yeah. So instead of looking at it with Pollyanna glasses, you get what another person from another franchise from who likes other franchises thinks of your team. And I try to at least be honest when I'm talking about another team. I mean, I did say last night that I thought the Eagles were going to win the division. I just don't think they're going to win a playoff game. But I could be wrong. That's the beauty of it, guys. We could get proven wrong, or we could be right.
Right.
All
right. So
none of us really know.
Here's the hoping we get the Packers in the first round.
So
they don't scare me.
But you're careful what you wish for, because Green Bay could always pull off a trade and get a really good receiver in the middle of the season.
Don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
They free Tyreek from Miami.
Don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
God, that would be terrible if that happened.
I would cry.
All right, gentlemen. So let's see here. We talked about Arizona. We also talked about Chicago and Winnipeg. All right, let's take a look at some of the greener grasses over here in the Central Division. And let's talk about Dallas, since we're talking green here. So the Stars made some moves in this offseason. Obviously, they are a team that made a little bit of noise this year by getting into the playoffs, basically getting into that race with Vegas and kicking Vegas right out of it, making up for 2 years back when they got booted by Nashville because they like to go streaking sometimes and dry up on offense. But gentlemen, after having a tough out there, which, I'm sure they took it in stride, but it was a tough out all the same. What do you see from Dallas this year as they try to get back into more consistent playoff berths and try to make it more commonplace to see them once again in the playoffs? What do you think?
I like the Mason Marchment signing. It's only a $4.5 million cap hit. I think he's going to help bring that scoring, Brad, that you're talking that they might be lacking this year. They picked up Colin Miller as well as goaltender Scott Wedgwood during this offseason. The key loss, though, is Klingberg to Brian's Ducks. John Klingberg, you don't easily replace him.
No, that's not That's the problem. They're going to need one of their kids to step up.
Right, exactly. So while I saw them as having a pretty good offseason, them not retaining Klingberg, and it didn't look like they were going to anyway. You know, I was definitely in the market for the Flyers possibly to go after Klingberg. You know, I'm glad that Anaheim's another good fit for him or what have you. Maybe it does allow that room for the kids to step up, Brad, and them to be competitive in this division. But I think they're going to kind of be mediocre, hanging around like that 4th, 5th spot, hoping for a wild card, just like they were this year.
Yeah.
Good goaltending, though. You got to like the goaltending. Was it Jake Ottinger?
Yeah. Oh,
Yep. It was Ottinger.
Yeah, he's good.
Very good.
He's really good.
So maybe they can play good, just good goaltending and defense and win some hockey games. Very distinctly possible.
The problem is they have to be able to score. You know, you got to score to win in the NHL.
Right.
You know, I mean, you can get away with a slightly above average goalie, but if you have a slightly above average goalie, you got to score a lot. If you have a really good goalie, then just score enough to win. But Dallas couldn't even do that last year. As I said, the key with them, and this is going to be a key to my Rangers as well, is the young guys, it's time for them to put on their big boy pants and go out there and start scoring some goals.
Yeah.
You know, and help some of the veterans out and get some goals. They certainly can. They've mastered playing good defense, that's for sure.
I mean, they need some of these young pups to really step up this year. Ty Dellandrea comes to mind as one of the guys. Obviously, you want Jason Robertson to really take another step forward. There's a few other young guys that are going to compete for roster spots, but I mean, with the level of veteran leadership they have on this roster, they could be a very dangerous team.
They just somebody needs to step up.
You need to get Tyler Seguin back in the form and be Tyler Seguin again.
You just read my mind, dude.
Yeah,
and actually, I was looking at an article from the hockey writers where, in their opinion, they were stating that he's finally turning a corner from the injury. He's the real wild card. If he can go back and resemble anything like his former self, that could be a real shot in the arm for this organization.
Absolutely.
Can he stay healthy? That's the problem.
Yeah, can he stay healthy though?
He'll recover and he'll be out on the ice again, but for how long?
Right.
It just seems like he just can't get out. He can't get out there and stay out there.
Right.
Well, I mean, he's only really missed. The only significant time that he's missed in his career was 2 seasons ago when he only played 3 games. Any other time, aside from his last year in Boston, which I think was a short year, he's played at least 70 games a year. So he's playing the bulk of the seasons, but he needs to get back to being that 30, 40 goal scorer that they know him to be, that 80-point guy. For them to really, I think if they really want to compete for a division spot or even go make a deep playoff run, they need the Tyler Seguin involved.
But they need to fix their power play. You want to see a lot of goals scored by Seguin, they need to fix their power play. Their power play was not a top power play last year. And that something's got to get done there.
No, I'm sure their new head coach will probably have something to do with that.
You would think so, but that's a must for them. Any team that has trouble scoring has got to make sure they have a good power play. If you can have a good power play, then you can stay in any hockey game. As long as 5-on-5, you can at least stay even.
Swoopy, even though we did talk about them, he did say, how about the Blackhawks wanting to get rid of Seth Jones a year after signing him? Nobody wants that contract. How foolish was the signing in the first place?
It was a very Philadelphian-like signing. But they were trying to turn it around quick. They were trying to, retool on the fly.
Yeah, but Seth Jones is a good player.
Oh, he is.
He's a game changer, but nobody can afford him right now.
Oh well.
Yeah, they paid him as a franchise player, as a core player. So to trade a core player who's already been paid, it's not easy to do in the NHL.
So watch this. Watch Columbus go on a run. Watch them go on the greatest run they've ever had to like the Eastern Conference Finals as a shocking team to come out of nowhere, get beat by whoever's going to go to represent the East in the Stanley Cup Finals. And then everybody's going to look at Seth and be like, hey, man, was Chicago really worth it, bud? Was it really worth playing with your brother? That team that you used to be on just went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Just saying.
Oh, that would hurt. Yeah. Yeah, but look, the thing with the Blue Jackets is the Blue Jackets went and they brought in John Davidson, and
Yeah.
immediately they bring in credibility into their into their general managership. Is that the right word to use?
Something like GM-ship. We'll go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go with it.
Their front office. Let's put it this way: they brought in validity into their front office. Because John Davidson is the kind of guy that can get stuff done. And what happens as soon as they bring in Johnny Hockey? Guess who wants to all of a sudden play there for the next 4 years?
Right.
You know, I mean, that's crucial. That's crucial.
It is. But
You make a good point, Brad. You make a good point, Brad. But that's a homer take from the John Davidson Ranger days. I know you.
Well, okay, but John Davidson did a nice job getting
Agreed.
Getting guys on our. I mean, listen, the Zibanejad trade. Did you like that trade?
Yeah,
For Brassard.
that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I what it did. I think that the Trouba trade was a pretty good trade because in essence,
But
they
for
traded
me,
Kevin Hayes,
For
they
me,
traded
nothing
Kevin
beat
Hayes for
nothing
Trouba.
beat nothing beat Al Rosen and John Davidson in the booth.
Ah,
I like them in the booth too.
Oh, Sam, by the way, Sam. Rosen.
Oh, Sam Rosen. Sorry,
Yes.
yeah, same difference.
Al was a GM with the Indians.
that's right. I'm in baseball mode, baby. I'm surprised
Yeah.
I can even talk hockey right now.
Well,
No, I don't
jumping back,
blame you. But by the way, we actually scored a run tonight.
Hooray!
It
We
was on
haven't.
an, it
The
was on
streak
an
is
error.
over.
It was on an error, of course, but you know,
Listen, you got to start somewhere, bro.
yeah.
but jumping back to the Dallas Stars here real quick, I think bringing in Peter DeBoer is really going to spark this club.
Boy,
Do you think that his now this is my personal opinion on DeBoer. Do you think his checkered past with the playoffs, do you think that he will have a long time in Dallas, or do you think that he will have a brief period in Dallas?
I mean, all NHL head coaches now have a brief period. It's a 2 to 3, maybe 4 year.
Right.
That's a good point. You are right. Coaches are hired to be fired. Yeah.
They're hired to be fired. They're always the first ones to go.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
That's true.
But EJW are saying
I still see him with a Devil jersey on his head.
although I did want
I despise that. I'll tell you what. When he was the coach of the Devils and Tortorella was the coach of the Rangers, and they used to have those brawls 3 seconds into the game, there was nothing better than that.
I will say though, I did love watching DeBoer get his ass kicked by the Kings in the 2012 Stanley Cup Finals. That was nice.
Yes, it
But
Yes.
and then of course that came back and bit me in the ass because he became the head coach of the Sharks when they got their ass kicked by the Penguins in the Stanley Cup Finals. So of course, I can't enjoy anything in life, can I? But anyway, so EJ Dub saying, should the Flyers use their second pick on a goalie no matter how good Hart plays or just looks average, especially after Russian goalie is stuck in Russia? No, I mean, I understand that the Russian side of things, but at the same time, I would say no. There are other goaltenders too that the Flyers have in the system as well. It's not just
Right.
It's not just the what is his name? Damn it, I'm blanking on his name.
It's very deep position now. Very
Yeah.
deep position.
We've been stocking up on goaltending prospects, so I'm not as concerned about that. Plus, also, Hart will be fine. I'm not worried about it. You know, I mean, as Hart had his moments of moments of shakiness, yes, but I don't think that's all his fault. Some of it is, but not all of it. So yeah, I would say no, not necessary.
I mean, it's good to keep the pipeline full, but I don't necessarily think you're going to see that in the second round.
Yeah.
No. You don't need to do that.
I mean, most goalies on average, you're going to take it. Most like franchise goalies, you'll wind up, unless it's like an elite franchise changing type of goalie. Average is about third or fourth round.
Right. I mean,
really, other than Tom Barrasso, I can't think of a goalie who was picked in the first round that really was great, had a great career.
Was Brodeur taken in the first, or was he taken later?
I
Who?
think he was taken later.
Brodeur.
He was taken later.
He was taken
Yeah,
later.
always thought also go in the
was
first
picked in the
round.
fourth or fifth round by the Rangers, and Lundqvist was picked in the seventh round.
Right.
So a lot of times they take goalies, and goalies generally are pretty much the raw ones. Are usually it's all about whoever's the coach developing them and getting them to fine tune their reflexes and their their ability to cut down the angle and using their different parts of their equipment to make saves and being able to cover rebounds and that sort of thing. That's all coaching.
Yeah. It takes time too. It's not something that just happens overnight. Swoopy saying the Red Wings are the next Tampa Bay Lightning, but will be a much younger bunch. Yzerman built them, then left with an amazing team to go to his former team. They're going to be an amazing team and a fun team in 2 years for a very long time. And guess what? They're in the East now, not in the West this time.
Yeah.
So we get to directly deal with them, unlike the last time when they were in the West.
The poor Toronto Maple Leafs, when Tampa Bay gets too old, then they're going to have to deal with the Red Wings.
Right. So
the good times will continue in Toronto.
Right.
I know who you were thinking of, Matt. You were thinking of Ustimenko.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And
we didn't even mention Felix Sandstrom. It's very talented. Good chance of being the backup goaltender, working in tandem with Hart. So, it's a real shame what's going on. With Fedotov being enlisted, unwillingly to the Russian Navy at this time. But hopefully, God willing, that war comes to an end sooner than later, and he's able to get over here back to the States. Free Brittany Griner, by the way.
Yeah, hopefully. Oh, by the way, Flyers did re-sign Jackson Cates to a 1-year contract. Minor little news bulletin that popped up before the show. So, Jackson Cates
I don't think it's minor at all. I don't think it's minor at all, Maddie. I love it. He showed promise, and I just love what could be working with them, with him working together with his brother Noah. You know what I mean, and having that, city of brotherly love. You know what I mean. There's a vibe that goes with that, and like I said, just having that chemistry. I mean, you saw how the Sedin twins took it to another level, obviously, but I think that was a good two-way signing there.
Yeah, I liked Cates' game, both him and Noah, actually. So both the Cates brothers seem to know what they're doing out there on the ice. Hopefully we can get some mileage out of them. And, maybe this year we get a little bit more from Noah and we get a lot from Jackson, and, we go from there. Hopefully.
Just bringing the NCAA flavor, you know what I mean? That experience, they're a little bit more grizzled than the typical prospect. And you combine that with hopefully ultimately a healthy Bobby Brink. You know what I'm saying? Like, lock down that future. Like, I'm more up for that than signing an aging Phil Kessel.
I'm down with that too. Let's get younger.
Yeah. Right.
He's not. It is not time for the Flyers to be going out and getting those kind of
No,
but sometimes you see clubs though, they'll go out and just get that one name guy to sell tickets to just you got to try to put up some goals or whatever, but it's wasting money in my opinion.
The Flyers aren't going to do something like that. They're too smart for that. I think they're too smart for that.
Are you
Agreed.
kidding? That's what the Flyers always do. It's the only thing they are known for doing is going and getting guys past their prime. That's what they love to do. It's probably the best Philly pastime of all time.
Maybe Brad's talking the current regime.
I know. Okay. I'm going. All right. I'll give you that.
These guys aren't going to do that.
I hope. And then,
I mean, I can understand your lack of optimism. I get that, but I don't think that they're. I think they're too smart for that right now.
EJ saying because I'm starting to think Hart isn't an elite goalie, even though these past 3 seasons aren't his fault, and he's only 23. Could there be goalie coach problems? I see your point. I mean, I think a lot of it was, Hart's still very young. He's 23, and then at the same time, you thrust it into the NHL position. And then on top of that, you have the pandemic that happens right in the middle of it, cuts off momentum the Flyers were building the one season, go into a bubble. Then you go into a pandemic year where he mentally did not have the best state of mind going into that season, and it continued. Now you're going into this year, you go into the next year. The next year, the team was just awful. And then now this year, my only concern is that the investigation. That's the only thing that gives me any worry whatsoever. Everything else, I mean, should be fine. As long as the defense decides to show up, would be nice. But there are some times where Hart, maybe a little too many long pucks get by him, but you can cut down those angles and what have you, get square the shooter and whatnot, and also have that defense show up when you need it to.
Matty, he played better this season despite
He did.
The results of the team. I mean, we were talking about the bounce back, the turnaround he was showing in the first third of the season, back when we still had hope.
Right.
And you got to credit Dylan Hall with getting him out of that mire of the pandemic or what have you, like almost serving as a sports psychologist along with being a goaltending coach or what have you. So I don't really think it's, goaltending coaching per se. I mean, sometimes it is good to hear different strategy, different techniques, a different voice. So I'm not against that necessarily, but I don't know, maybe Brad could speak to this. Obviously watching Henrik Lundqvist maturating into the fine goaltender that he became. Did he have similar growing pains like we've seen with Carter Hart, or his Hart had more growing pains than Lundqvist had?
No, Hart's had more than Lundqvist. Lundqvist, when he first came aboard, the Rangers had horrible defense, and he was just stopping everything.
Okay.
That just continued. But as far as most goalies take a while to really get it and become great goalies. It's very rare that somebody just jumps right into the NHL. I mean, not everybody could be Martin Brodeur,
right.
and go to the Eastern Conference Finals in his rookie year.
Well, I figured having you on the show as being a big fan, when Hart was drafted, Lundqvist was my comp for him. So I wanted to see, flash forward a few years later, was I accurate with that? And obviously that's not the case.
The thing with Hart, I mean, to be fair, your defense has been really bad the last few years.
Yeah, it has been.
It's been really bad, and he's faced too many A+ scoring opportunities. And the problem is when a goalie faces that many A+ scoring opportunities, then the whole league can get a book on him.
Right.
And know where to shoot and that sort of thing. And that's a problem when that happens. But the good news is he probably knows what his issues are, and hopefully he's working on them and getting better. The one thing I noticed about him, even in his first year, was what good rebound control the guy had. That was the one thing that he was really good at. He wasn't leaving rebounds in front of that, and he still doesn't. So really, it's all about these defensemen just doing a better job and not
helping them cut down the angles.
Yeah. I mean, these guys have got to stop giving up A+ opportunities. That's a problem. I mean, how often does Hart get beat on a B or a C opportunity? Not very often. So it's not always. I mean, how many goals this year? I mean, you guys watch almost every game, okay? How many goals can you sit there and say, "Oh my God, come on, Hart, you got to stop that. That's terrible."
I mean, only like probably like the average amount for a goaltender where it's just they're having a bad night, a bad bounce goes the wrong way. You know, there were a couple of games where he had some rebound issues, but I think that was again another one of those issues of bad night, and every goalie has
Every
them.
goalie,
You
listen,
know,
every goalie's going to have a night like that. That's normal. Okay, I mean, that happens. That's not something that doesn't happen.
I'll tell you this, Brad. This past season, it was a handful of times. The season before, though, there was several goals where you just saw him quit, and that's what I didn't like. I saw a little quit in his game, and that was part of the pandemic effect, the isolation, and being going back and forth from the rink to his apartment, being all alone and isolated. It really got into his head, and he had no compete left in him, and you saw that come back this season. So that's what was encouraging to me.
He's a young kid.
Yeah.
These guys, they're professional athletes and they're young and they want to go out, and they want to socialize. And when you take that away from them, they're not happy in their personal life, and sometimes they take it out. They take it with them on the ice.
Sure.
right?
Listen, they're young. They want to go out. They want to have a good time after the games. That's a totally normal thing for a young guy like that to want to do. Okay, and when you take that away, and then he starts having a bad year, it starts playing games in your head. You're like, oh shoot,
Right.
go out there again.
Right.
I'm gonna get my brains beat in because we suck. That can play games with your mind when you leave the rink and you go home to your family, okay, or whatever it is that you're going home to, okay. You can at least leave that stuff at the rink and go
Right.
home and get a clear head. You come back the next day and you practice, and everything is just different. But when it's day after day, the same thing all the time, sure,
Yeah.
that's gonna be hard.
You're going to repeat it at home in your head, especially Hart, who is an extremely hard worker, who will work on those elements of the game of the book being out on him to correct, that, upper net, like he got beat a lot blocker side up, that's something he's got to work
Yeah,
on.
but
But this comp right here, I think is much, much better to Carey Price, a guy that got in his head a little bit too.
Yeah, but let's be honest, okay? What goalie doesn't have? That's the hardest shot to stop.
Yeah. With the blocker side, yeah, exactly. That's true.
That's the hardest shot to stop. I mean, every goalie has that problem. I mean, especially now in the age of all these goalies being butterfly goalies and going down all the time.
Right.
I mean, it's a little different when you're able to stick your glove up, and try to catch the puck, or at least get a piece of it. The blocker, if you use the blocker, you're going to leave a rebound. If you're lucky enough to be able to control your blocker, you can knock it into the net.
But you can cut your angles down to not make it a blocker save. Like he gave up a much higher percentage than the average goaltender there. You're right. It's one of the more challenging saves, but he was even less proficient at it than the average goaltender. And he's not an average goaltender,
So
I think he's better than that. I think he's going to be fine. I just think that they have to improve their defense and give him a little help.
Yeah.
He can't do it. He's not yet reached the level where he can do it on his own. You can't just hang him out to dry.
Yeah.
He's not quite at that level yet, but he certainly has the ability to. You saw that in his rookie season.
EJ Dub saying I know Price had growing pains too. Thanks for the feedback on Hart. No problem, man. And
hit that like and subscribe, EJW.
Yeah, like and subscribe, man. If you enjoy what you're watching, it's not just hockey we cover. If you're a full sports guy, we've got all the sports covered for you all week long. So check us out. A2D Radio. All right, then. And quick question, though, Brad. How old was Lundqvist when he made his NHL debut?
23.
He's 23? Okay, so he's the age Hart is now. Hart was even younger when he made his debut in the league.
Yeah,
so,
Lundqvist, don't forget Lundqvist. When the Rangers drafted Lundqvist was in Sweden. and he didn't
Yeah.
come over for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So he was on the Swedish elite team, and the whole thing in Sweden, and he didn't come over for a couple of years. So when he came over, he was already pretty polished when he came over. But you didn't see him just getting broken in. It's Hart, Hart. What did Hart come up as a 20-year-old?
Mhm.
That is
Yeah.
not easy as a goalie. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't see too many 20-year-old goalies. I mean, Igor
No.
Shesterkin, he's 26 now. Okay, he came up when he was 23.
Yeah. So again,
It's
same age
very
that
hard.
Hart is now.
Yeah, remember, 20-year-old players, are usually, the year before that, they're probably playing in juniors. They're not used to the kind of shots that they're going to face. How hard those shots are. Maybe one or two guys that they face a night would have shots as hard as every NHL player. A lot of them he could make an easy save. It's hard to do that. It's really hard. You just don't see that.
Yeah.
I mean, how many Tom Barrasso, his first year in the NHL, was terrible with the Sabres.
Oh yeah.
He
Yeah.
was terrible when he came up as a 19-year-old right out of high school, and he was getting his brains beat in. But you know what? He ended up just fine.
Miracle. He went to the Penguins and he became a career goaltender.
He was great. I mean, yeah, he was always one of those guys that would give up a mind-bogglingly bad goal. That was part of his mystique, and that part of that, and I think a lot of that kind of made teams, just start shooting stupid shots at him because they'd see that he'd give up a ridiculous goal, and they're like, oh, all we got to do is get a couple of shots at him, and he really wasn't that, and he really wasn't. He just sometimes he wasn't paying attention and get beat by an extremely bad goal. Now I don't know if Hart has that problem or not. Maybe he does. I don't know. Could be, but he just needs the team to play better defense around him, and I think Tortorella is really going to help with his development because Tortorella preaches defense. He's going to make those guys block shots whether they like it or not, and if they don't want to block shots, they're going to be either sitting on the bench, playing in the minors, or playing on another team.
Brad.
I have a funny feeling I've disliked Torch for so long that it's going to be like Step Brothers 2, where I'm going to be like, did we just become best friends? Yup.
I was going to say, Brad, keep that Torts comment in the back of your head because Swoopy here, first off, he says, supposedly Scott Lawton said he wants to be a Flyer for all of his career, according to Charlie O'Connor. Well, wouldn't mind having Superman around.
Who's Charlie O'Connor?
He's a beat writer.
Oh, okay. Just curious. Didn't know. The only Charlie O'Connor I ever heard of used to play for the New York Chiefs in roller derby about 30, 40 years ago. So that's why I'm asking. Him and Joni Weston beating everybody up.
And Swoopy also goes on to say, how was your birthday, Bri? And did you do anything fun?
Really? I worked all day.
Well, that sounds fun.
You had the family down, though. You didn't celebrate your birthday then?
No.
No.
They were down a week before.
So, it's close enough.
Yeah. We celebrated my sisters. That was it.
Oh, man. Bride always gets a shaft.
Always good.
And then finally, this is the Torts thing. So he says, Brad, I know you've said several times Torts is big on making his players block shots, but what about making his players and forwards get after attacking and pressuring guys with the puck, creating turnovers, taking away space, and not even allowing them room to shoot? Not just 5-on-5, but shorthanded too.
He does that. That's his style. When Torts has everybody playing his type of game, there's no room on the ice. It's like the other team's going to be skating in mud. That's how he wants it. Okay, and he likes to also have his nasty player on the bench. That's just the way he wants to coach teams. He likes to have he likes a mean team, with lots of sandpaper, and he wants the team to be able to choke off the ice so that there's no room. So that every time that the other team has the puck, The only way they're going to get the puck in in your zone is if they dump it in, and then his defenseman will knock it right. Well, he wants his defensemen to be good puck handlers and be able to pass and get the puck out of the zone. That's his whole thing, and he's real good at what do you call it? Transition, head manning the puck. That's what he likes. That's his whole shtick. Making the other team make an error at their blue line because there's nowhere to go, no space. They make an error, they make a bad pass, and bang, your team has a breakaway and scores. That's how he plays. That's how his teams play. And he'll have them doing that. It's only a matter of time.
All right, gentlemen. So let's pick up where we left off here. We finished up with the Dallas Stars. Was there anything anybody wanted to comment on that before we moved on to the next team?
Yeah, I like them as number 5 still.
All right, then.
I'm not convinced that they're going to beat out the top 4.
All right, then. Rob, was there any other additional comments that you wanted to add to Dallas? Okay, Rob's on
his union break.
Yeah. Brian, was there anything you wanted to add to Dallas?
No.
All right, then. So we move on from the Dallas Stars, and let's jump in to our next in the Central Division. Let's talk about the St. Louis Blues, the team that Brad is super big on right now. Brad, we'll start with you. Why do you believe the Blues might very well be the big competition for the Colorado Avalanche going into this particular season?
Because of the playoffs, the way they were able to handle the Avalanche, the way they were able to slow them down. Until the Kadri incident, they were right in that series, and Colorado was really having their problems. And the Blues last year were a strange team. They got off to a slow start. And then they seem to, and for whatever reason, what's his name? Billy. I can't remember. What was the goalie? Not Billington, the other guy.
Husso.
Husso, yeah, Billy Husso. He came in and played great for them. They were able to build off that momentum, but I think that they can do it again. I think this whole thing with Tarasenko, they're not going to trade Tarasenko. I don't care what everybody says and all this garbage. He's not going anywhere. The only way he gets traded is if the Blues stink and have a bad year. Then maybe he goes. But as long as the Blues are a threat to the Avalanche, they're going to keep him. And that team is a real good, dangerous team. They do everything the right way. They can score. They can defend. There's really not a glaring weakness on that team. And they're tough.
Yeah, that's a big thing I like about this Blues team is the fact that they are tough.
They don't take any shit. They'll go in the corner. They'll win all the battles in the corner, and that's a big part. That's a big part of their game. They outwork a lot of teams too. That's the other thing, and I think they were outworking the Avalanche for a while in the playoffs too. I just think that's the one team that could really give the Avalanche trouble, and they gave them trouble in the playoffs. They did. They won 2 games against them, and they could have been more had it not been for that injury.
I mean, the best way to beat the Colorado Avalanche is to slow them down, and I think the St. Louis Blues are the only team in this division that can actually do that because of their physical play.
Yeah, I mean, look, honestly, I mean, it's very easy to say nobody can beat the Avalanche. Yeah, anybody can tell you that. Duh. We just watched them win the Stanley Cup. Okay, so I mean, logically, it would make sense to think that with our poll, that the Avalanche should win the division and they should win it easily. Yeah, of course. That's what I'm trying to do is cast a little shadow of doubt, and I think Rob is feeling the same way. That we're trying to cast a little shadow of doubt that no, don't count out the Blues. That's the one team, in my opinion, in that division that they can give them a hard time.
Yeah, I do agree. They play, like, to your point earlier, they played them tough in the playoffs. They've had a pretty good offseason. Re-signing Nick Leddy was key. Um, what they bought, they acquired, they got more goaltending to, kind of replace losing Ville Husso and Thomas Greiss, who's a longstanding veteran in this league. Really just build on, their depth, and I think that they can really give Avalanche a run for their money. I mean, I like the way their bottom six sets up now to support their top six. And what's key to get far in the playoffs, you got to roll 4 lines. I just, like I said, I mean, re-signing Leddy, re-signing Thomas as well. Robert Thomas, center iceman.
Thomas was a big story for them last year.
Right. You got an 8-year contract extension too. Yep. You got paid money for that.
Nobody saw that coming.
No, definitely not. So, but that'll be a question mark for them. Can he continue? You know what I mean? Does he have more? A second-year slump? You know what I mean?
He's gonna get a lot more attention paid to him. But that's a good thing for St. Louis, because that opens it up for other guys.
Bingo.
I mean, that'll just give Tarasenko more room.
Yeah, I could easily see them finish as high as second in this division.
Oh, absolutely. I think they will finish second. I just think that they are the best all around team other than Colorado in the division right now. They have no real weaknesses.
All right then. So Colorado could possibly have to look in the rearview mirror and make sure that St. Louis doesn't gain on them. All right. So the St. Louis Blues on that one. And now let's talk about, I would have to think, a bit of a wild card. Not necessarily a team that will be the wild card, but a bit of a wild card, only because what are we going to see from them this year? And that would be the Minnesota Wild. The Wild, for the last couple of seasons, we've talked about, obviously, Kirill Kaprizov and how much of a superstar he's turning into out there, and how this team just finds ways to win, and how they find ways to be a frustrating team to go up against, and how exciting they are to watch. Gentlemen, what do you see from them this year? Do you think that they continue to be that kind of a team where you just don't know what to expect from them, where they go into Minnesota and you don't have an easy night ahead of you, and when they go on the road, could they possibly become a frustrating team to visit your building and really make it tough for you to hold your spot in the division?
I mean, I think this is a team that's going to battle for the top of the division, believe it or not. I mean, I know we got question marks on the goaltender, but Marc-Andre Fleury is, he's Marc-Andre Fleury. It's like we were saying earlier in the show. He's first ballot Hall of Famer, so no doubt about it.
True.
Could his age be a question mark? Absolutely, it can. But this is a good veteran defense that Minnesota has, led by Matt Dumba, and the veteran leadership jumps in with John Merrill, Jacob Middleton, which was a great addition for them last year. Captain Jared Spurgeon. They're really solid defensively, and you can't sleep on Jonas Brodin either.
Don't forget Greenway. He's a real good player.
He's on the offensive side. I didn't even get there yet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, he's somebody that looked like he was developing too.
Yeah, I mean, he took huge steps forward too last year. I mean, if you're looking at another guy, there's veteran leadership on the offensive side of the puck too.
But I guess my question with Hartman is, when did Hartman become a good offensive player?
The moment that he started playing on the top line.
Yeah.
I mean, I always thought of him as a goon. Wasn't he on the Flyers too?
He was never really a goon. He was more like a Travis Konecny style of player. Like he can score, but I mean, no one thought he was going to be a 30-goal scorer.
He was always a pest.
Yeah, he was a pest. Before last year, his highest goal total came when he was with Chicago, and when he put up 19 goals. And then after that, it was 10 and below. But I mean, if you're looking more like let's take Hartman out of this. You have like Brad, who brought up Jordan Greenway, who had a breakout year last year. You still have Kaprizov. Zuccarello had a great year last year. You brought in Tyson Yost last year. You know, Joel Eriksson Ek is a fine young player. This
there's a
Minnesota
lot of
team is not a
talent.
team to sleep on either,
Yeah,
and they roll 4 lines.
Yeah, that's a very talented team. I would agree with you. They were very up and down though last year. They just have to get more consistent. So
I mean,
we'll
they
see
finished
about
second in the division. I feel like that's pretty consistent.
Yeah, but for a while, didn't they have a lot of trouble winning at home?
Not that I'm aware of.
There was one point where they lost like a whole bunch of games and gave up a whole bunch of goals. They had a really bad skid. I think it was in January, if memory serves me correct. But they had a really long skid, and then they got everything together.
38-8-2 at home, or 31-8-2 at home.
Okay, then maybe I'm trying to remember. Didn't they have a stretch though where they gave up a lot of goals?
Possibly. I mean, every team goes through that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. I can't specifically remember, but there was a stretch, and then they played us and shut us down. And I
Always the
remember
way.
the entire game. The Ranger announcers were saying that this team's been giving up a lot of goals, yada 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 yada, and I think we lost that game 6-2. So.
You don't sleep on. All I'm saying is don't sleep on Minnesota.
Oh no, you can't sleep on that. They're pretty good. They're a pretty good hockey team. I think they're number 3 in that division, though.
Yeah, there's some question marks there.
Yeah, definitely. So Minnesota, Bry, you have them competing for the tops of the division. Brad, where do you have Minnesota finishing?
Third.
Okay, then. Rob, what do you think?
I think I'm in agreement with third. I mean, what's interesting, though, depending on how it goes, I could see any of the top 3, between Avs, Blues, and Wild finishing in any order. I mean, I think both are equal to the task, the challenge for the division lead.
All right, that's not far out of the league of the imagination. Okay, gentlemen, so on to our next team, and that is a team that has managed to sneak into the playoffs 2 years in a row, and some would argue that they didn't deserve to sneak into the playoffs 2 years in a row, but they managed to pull it off all the same. 1 year it took advantage of Dallas. The next year they just managed to hold on for dear life. The Predators. We saw what happened to them against Colorado. I wouldn't necessarily call that a series. That was more like a public execution. So
That was men against boys.
Yeah, that was not pretty.
No.
And mostly because the goaltender got hurt. So horrible.
You really think it would have mattered?
I mean, they probably still would have lost, but they might have won a game had it not been for that. But
maybe
all right, gents.
Got lucky.
So, what do you think Nashville does now that they suffered at the hands of Colorado? They go into this offseason getting ready for this year in the Central. Do you see them trying to get another wild card spot, or do you think that they will miss this coming season?
I think they get that wild card spot. I mean, they went out and they made a couple nice moves here, bringing in Zach Sanford, Nino Niederreiter, and defenseman Ryan McDonough to shore up that back end. You also bring in another goaltender, Kevin Lankinen, so that's going to add to that goaltending duo back there. That's going to add a little bit of depth there. I mean, this team, to me, got better than they were last year. But do I think they're as good as St. Louis, Colorado, or Minnesota? Tom will tell. But, I mean, to Rob's point earlier, talking about getting Philip Forsberg back under a long-term deal is huge for them. So, I mean,
you could argue that they have the best goaltending in the division. You can make that argument.
I don't even know if that's much of an argument. I think they do.
That does change a lot.
Yeah,
they could really be a wild card, like literally and figuratively in this division. I mean, if Saros really takes that next leap and maybe even a leap and a half where he's standing on his head stealing games from Nashville, they might usurp one of these three that we're targeting, between Avs, Wild, and the Blues. I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I mean this Nashville team I really truly believe has gotten better from last year.
And don't forget that the Pacific Division is awful. Okay, so there could easily be 5 teams in the Midwest that can, or the Central, whatever you want to call it, that can make the playoffs.
I mean, there's teams in the Pacific Division I would not sleep on.
Well, I only see 3 that are really good. The rest of them are going to have to battle. Are going to have to really battle.
So I mean, you have Calgary, you have Edmonton, you have Las Vegas, and then you have LA. Anaheim's on the up and up. Vancouver's on the up and up. That's 6 teams right there. That they're all going to be battling for playoffs.
Anaheim and Vancouver are not making the playoffs. They're not there yet.
You sure about that?
Yeah.
Anaheim will make a playoff. I guarantee you, Anaheim will make a playoff spot this year with the moves they made this offseason.
They've had a really good
Bring in
offseason.
Klingberg, Strome, and Vetrano. Those are moves you don't make trying to miss a playoff spot.
Well, no, I agree. I know I like Strome and Vetrano. I mean, I got to watch them firsthand last year. I like both those guys. I'm just thinking about that. They're not better than Edmonton. I don't think they're better than Vegas when Vegas is healthy. So I mean, those 2. Calgary, I think Calgary has done an excellent job of reshaping their team. I think they're going to be at number 3. LA will fight for number 4. Will fight to get number 4. As I said, I could see 5 teams in the those 5 teams we just talked about beating out LA. LA better score a lot of goals, and they better win a lot of games this year.
I will say this though: over the first third of last season,
Anaheim competing with those teams.
Anaheim was leading that division in the first third, and that's before these pieces were added. I mean, you're going to need some repeat performances, like what's his name that sort of came out of nowhere, Troy Terry. You know what I mean? If he continues that level of play.
He scored a ton of goals last year. Is he going to do that again?
Right.
That's just what his knack was when they drafted him, was as a goal scorer.
That's what he does.
Wing. Yeah.
He scores goals and takes the ladies home. Is that what he does? That's his
yeah, he does that too.
Seegers are very good players. There's no question about that. I'm not doubting them. I just don't know that Anaheim is quite ready to make the playoffs yet. That's a big leap for them.
I don't think it's that big of a leap after watching them last year.
So,
well, how close were they to making the playoffs last year? How many points did they finish out of it?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Give me a second.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't remember them being all that close. I think they were pretty much.
I think we've got something interesting to debate on when we get to next week for the Pacific Division.
See.
The wild card, they finished. I mean, they had a terrible second half, but I mean, they were sitting in first place for the first 3 months of the year. 76 points they finished with last year, and the second place team was Nashville with 97.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, they fell off, but they didn't have the depth that they have now. So
exactly,
we'll see if that makes a difference.
They didn't have the defenseman either. They had to battle with injuries as well.
They should be able to score more goals. I mean, Vetrano and Strome should definitely supply them with some.
But to Maddie's point, let's save that for next week and let's get centralized.
Sorry,
right? I see what you did there, Robbie.
On my team, I'm going to defend them.
Now, listen, it'll be put a pin in this, gentlemen, because it's going to be interesting to talk about this next week when we break down the Pacific Division. All right, so let's finish up the Central and finish out this first period. The reigning and defending Stanley Cup champions, the Colorado Avalanche. Rob, you were talking about how you weren't necessarily – was it you who was saying you weren't a big fan of what Colorado did in the offseason?
I don't like the pieces that have departed or are still remaining out there, but I do have to admit, though, they actually took more care of housekeeping than I thought. They re-signed a Tori Lehkonen, Jason Manson, tough guy, a good fourth liner, Darren Helm, Valerie Nistushkin. They got an 8-year contract. I didn't know about that. So I mean that's actually pretty big. But you lost your goaltender. Will Georgiev be able to fill that role? Brad doesn't think so. I tend to agree with them. You lost Andre Burakovsky too. That's tough. And if you go ahead and lose Nazem Kadri, that's going to just give a little chink in the armor. But ultimately, the core is still there. As long as you got Landeskog, as long as you got Nate McKinnon, Cole Makar. This team's very talented. They'll be.
Samuel Girard, let's not forget him too. He's another
truth be told,
player.
Absolutely.
Nichushkin, though, I'm surprised that they gave him an 8-year contract. I mean, he's a third. To do that with a third-line player is a little bit surprising.
He's just a key for their core, man.
No, I understand that, but still, he played on the third line.
Yeah, it's a 6.125 too. Yeah, but he had pretty good stats.
Yeah, no, I know.
Well, I mean, where are you going to put him when your top six? When your top six is your top six, you're not going to bump any of them out. So you got to put him on the third line. And it's the same issue with Carolina. Carolina's third line could have been anybody else's first or second top line. So you're kind of stuck. So to call him he's a third line player in Colorado because of how deep they are.
Yeah,
right.
25 goals, 52 assists. I mean, he's a good energy guy too, and that's what you want for your third line.
Listen, he'd be a first liner on any team. I'm just saying though, the problem is when you start paying guys that are on your back six that kind of money, it's going to catch up with them.
Yeah, maybe.
Because you can't, unfortunately in the NHL, you can't keep everybody.
Sure.
No, and if they move somebody from their top six, Nichushkin's going to get bumped up to the second or first line. Or if somebody gets hurt, he's going to get bumped up.
Yeah,
he's only on the third line because of who their top six are.
Exactly. But, when it comes time to signing all these top six guys, they can't do it.
Plus, Georgiev wasn't cheap either.
What did he end up signing for with them? 3.5?
3 years, 3.5.
Okay.
I mean, Colorado, even with who they have, they still had. They were going into 2 years ago with a ton of cap room.
Yeah, no, I realize that, but do you understand my point though? When you start tying up guys that you have playing on your third line, there's certain guys that have to get paid, and we all know that. But at this point, when you start tying up. I had the same criticism with the Rangers when they gave all that money to Gaudreau. You're going to put him on the third and fourth line, okay? What happens on the first and second line when some of these younger players have to get paid? What are you going to do when you're giving all that money to Gaudreau and you're paying Reeves $1.5 million? That's the problem. You got $5 million invested in a guy that's on the third line and a guy that's in the fourth line. That it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you a really good player down the road.
I think Colorado is going to be fine because I'm looking at their cap right now. Eric Johnson is going to be off the books next year, and he's going to be 35 by the time that's done. So they're probably not going to re-sign him. They'll have to worry about Alex Newhook, who I don't think is going to get a huge contract, but he'll probably get like 3.5 to 4. Cogliano's off the books. JT Compher is probably off the books, and he's probably going to walk at the end of next year. The only person you have to worry about right now is Nathan McKinnon. And they
have to sign him.
They have just shy of 4 available in cap space right now. So I don't think it's an issue.
Yet.
I'm telling you how it's set up right now. It's not an issue.
I'm just wondering.
Keep in mind,
are they paying Cole? Don't forget, they're going to have to pay Cole Makar if they haven't yet.
Cole Makar is making $9 million over the next 4 or 5 years. He's already been signed.
He's making $9 million total or $9 million a year.
A year.
Wow.
That is a sweet deal.
Yeah, that's.
Sam Girard's under contract for the same amount that Cale Makar is. Josh Manson has another 4-year deal. They've got plenty of space and plenty of
How
time
much
to make
space?
sure that they need to do what they're doing.
How much cap space do they have right now?
Just shy of 4.
Shy of 4. Okay, that's why they can't bring in Kadri. And, they trade one of those guys, they can bring Kadri back too.
Yeah,
I'm saying if you look at the roster the way it is shaped up right now, their top 6, they can't fit Nikushkin in there anyway. It's the only reason he's a third-line player. But you're still going to pay him as a top 6 player because he is a top 6 player.
Oh yeah, I agree. I'm just saying you can't. In today's NHL, you can't pay everybody. They are gonna pay for that down the road. Somebody who they don't want is gonna be gone the next year or two. Yeah, I'd be shocked if it's not. But God bless them if they have it that fine tuned right now.
I mean, Joe Sakic's he's a whiz with the financials, so I mean he's making it work now.
Yes, he is.
Man, they need to get rid of the cap. Just develop a luxury tax like baseball. All that money could go to the Arizona Coyotes. For 10 cents a day, you could give them a home.
Yeah. You mean a place where they can put their insignia on the ice? Their emblem?
I will say that would be interesting. I mean, that ironically enough, when they originally did the lockout, that was originally a proposal from the players. Can we do a luxury tax like they did in baseball? But apparently the NHL rejected that outright and said, nope.
No, they wanted a hard cap.
Yep, they wanted it flat.
Yeah, they weren't having it because guys like Bobby Holik making $9 million a year, and that was like the straw that broke the camel's back when a center got $9 million. Like, okay, we got to do something now.
But the cap also keeps the talent spread out throughout the league too, so you can't create this like the NBA is doing.
With the markets and everything, because certain markets are going to have more money than others. And with hockey, of course, obviously, you can have a strong market, but like, say, Arizona, it's like poor ownership and disinterest. It's like, how much money are you pulling in? Like that's when you start getting those issues pulling up there.
But I'm going to hop off here in a minute, boys. I got work in the morning, but I'm going to jump in on the Georgiev debate real quick. I think Georgiev is going to be fine. Everybody was doubting Kemper last year, and now he's a Stanley Cup champion. That defense is going to be good in front of him, and they're going to give him opportunities to make saves, and they're not going to give him many bad opportunities at bad rebounds. So I'm not worried about it. That defense is going to be fine in front of him. They hated on Kemper. They still have Francois, too, to back him up. They're fine. They're going to be just fine.
With their system, all you really need is a warm body.
Mm-hmm. It just works out. I mean, how many times I've been preaching it since I've come on the show. Good defense leads to good goaltending.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, there's no question about that.
All right, boys, I got to jump off. I got work in the morning.
Defense.
All right, Brian.
Sure.
So, boys, have a good rest of the show. Have a good rest of your night, boys. I'll be in touch.
All right. Don, what's up, brother?
Oh,
hold on. Let me fix that. There we go. Got it. It's better now, Rob. You can look.
Don. B-Dale saw you in the chat. And he went running.
This case is for radio right there.
Oh, for sure.
All right. So that takes care of our breakdown of the Central Division. And for the most part, it's pretty much staying relatively the same. The top 3 teams seem to be Minnesota, St. Louis, Colorado, nothing crazy. No teams popping up and saying, hi, guys, we want to be in the top 3 spot too, It seems
Nashville
like
could be that team.
Possibly, but I think we've got them hovering in that 3rd place wild card range like they were last year. And, we also have pretty much Winnipeg, and I guess some would say Winnipeg's in that range. Others would say no. And then the bottom 2 are Chicago and Arizona. So, yeah. So, and also Don saying that Brian's scared of him. But with that being said, that's it for the Central Division. And that was our first period. Now it's time to dive into our second period, which is brought to you by All Campus OC. John Coyle, the man, the myth, the legend. He, of course, running all campus down there in Ocean City, New Jersey. And he's giving off 20% off of everything in the store, including hats, shirts, to all of our subscribers. So get subscribed up and get yourself 20% off in the store. Wear your team colors with pride. John also hosts the Ramp Booth, which is always a fun time. And as well, summer is almost over. It's getting there. We're getting into those, last few days. I know, it's sad. So take advantage while you still can. Get down to all campus before they got to close up shop, for the season. So get down there, get 20% off, and say hi to John. All right then, gentlemen. To our second period, it is time to talk about the biggest flops in NHL history. There have been some great, spectacular moments, spectacular players, spectacular franchises, spectacular everything in the NHL. But like every other league, there's also been disaster, terrible, dog shit moments that have left you scratching your head or pissed off beyond all belief, wondering why the hell is this reality and what the hell is going on. We're going to talk about those because I said this in the description. I'll say it here. You can't acknowledge the good without mentioning the bad, because a lot of times good comes out of that bad a lot of times. So, gentlemen, unless you're Arizona. So, gentlemen, let's get started. We'll throw out some of our favorite flops, our big flops in the NHL. I'll start off, and I'll talk about a team that was a disaster coming in, and they were a disaster going out. I'm going to talk about, of course, the California Seals. Back during the original expansion, when the original six era came to a close. When that happened, ladies and gentlemen, it was a whole new world. The new expansion came into the league. They had hockey in LA, but they also had hockey in the Bay Area, too. The San Jose Sharks were not the first attempt. It was the Seals who were the first attempt. They played at the Cow Palace, too. They were bad. They were very bad. They were never had a winning season. They were that bad. Never had a winning year, but because the league was so small, they still actually managed to be in the playoffs a few times. Their biggest year was they got to the second round. Somehow. They got to the second round, and yeah. And unfortunately, they had terrible ownership. They never got the arena they were promised. And then they sold them. They were sold to Charles Finley, who owned the Oakland A's, and it got even worse from there. He actually told his players to wear white skates on the ice, and they absolutely hated those white skates. And the only reason why he wanted to do that was because he wanted it to match the white shoes that the A's wore on the baseball field. But I guess no one told him that white skates indicate figure skating, not necessarily hockey. That didn't exactly, that got you beat up. That wasn't. So, needless to say, the Seals continue to be a disaster. They also went through several rebrands. They started out as the California Seals, then they turned into the Oakland Seals. They also were the California Golden Seals at one point, and then finally, they got sold to some type of ownership group out in Ohio, and they became the Cleveland Barons for 2 seasons. And they sucked there, too. They didn't have a winning season for the 2 seasons they were there. Then they finally gave up, and they contracted, the NHL did, and they merged the Cleveland Barons with the Minnesota North Stars. And there were a couple of decent
Stanley Cup finals that year.
Right. And I believe a couple of decent players that were on that Barons team that were languishing finally found themselves on an organization that, while they may not have had the most money in the world, they were a beloved organization with the Minnesota North Stars. But
they had the Seals had some good players. The real problem for the Seals was the fact that the WHA came in and stole all their players.
True.
The WHA just ripped them apart.
It did, and I believe it was
damn cheap.
Was it Finley who was owning it at the time?
Finley wasn't the owner. It was in 72. in 72, 73, they had at 71, 72, they had guys like Harold Vadnais on the team. Okay, and they got all these guys taken away. Then they had Walt McKechnie, who was a really good offensive player. They had Hilliard Graves, who was a good player. They had Reggie Leach, who was a really good player. They had Joey Johnstone, who was really good. I mean, Gilles Melange was one of the top goalies in the league, but he never had a chance because none of them their defense was so horrible. But the big problem with that, they had Dennis Marook, and Dennis Marook, we had him on our show on the Sports Hounds one evening. Dennis Marook was one hell of a player for that team, and he scored 60 goals twice in his career, but he didn't do it with them. That's for sure. He did it. I think he did it once with Minnesota and once with Washington.
Wow.
So yeah, but they had players. Okay, it's not that they didn't have the players, but for whatever reason, their ownership wouldn't pay them, and because of the WHA, and Carol Vadnais was one of the key missing pieces. Because if you remember, I mean, he ended up being Bobby Orr's when Dallas Smith got aged out. Carol Vadnais was on the ice with Bobby Orr.
Over in Boston.
Yeah, and that's really all you need to know about how good that guy was. Bobby Orr's to be Bobby Orr's defense partner. You have to.
They don't just give that to anybody.
No. So that was part of it. I mean, if you take a look, if you go back in your history books, they just got killed by the WHA. Dennis Marook kind of explained to us everything that happened to the SEALs and all the stupid stuff, and they were cheap as hell, and they didn't get a whole lot of attendance, so that was a problem too. So ultimately when they merged with Minnesota, all those guys ended up becoming great. But listen, you guys got picked Reggie Leach clean off their roster.
That's true. Of course, I think we had an advantage in that Bobby Clark had played with Leach when they were in juniors, so I think that helped. Helped us get him.
Reggie Leach, I believe, scored his best season with the SEALs. I think he had 27 goals with them. And I don't know what the Flyers gave up for him, but whatever they gave up, obviously it wasn't enough.
Yeah. And then actually he wound up having his best postseason with the Flyers, of course, because he wound up winning the Conn Smythe in '76, even though the Flyers didn't win the Cup that year. They lost to Montreal. But all the same, though, yeah, the SEALs, like you said, ownership refusing to match contracts. A lot of their best players skipped town, went to the WHA. Really don't blame them. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the SEALs died a very miserable death. And the NHL, yeah. Then they waited until the early 90s to try it again with San Jose. And I think that one worked out a lot better. That go around.
Yeah. Yeah. Also the fans showed up from day one. They didn't want to lose their. I think a lot of the fans realized that this was going to be their last shot at hockey.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah,
it didn't hurt that Wayne Gretzky also, went to the Kings.
Yes,
that really helped because that just changed everything in California. That's how the Sharks were born, and that's how the Anaheim Ducks were born.
And hell, that's how the Coyotes came into existence. That's how the Golden Knights come into existence. That's how Dallas winds up getting the nod to being moved to from Minnesota, albeit there's a little bit more of a marriage issue involving that. But in the same point, Western markets and Southern markets become more palatable because Gretzky went to LA. But Brad, Rob, which one of you wants to go now?
Well, I'll chime in real quick, and I'll chime in by saying I misread your criteria. I thought you meant biggest flop player, and for me, there's hands down no competition there. It's Rick DiPietro.
Rick DiPietro.
EP.
Maybe you could make a case for Alexander Daigle or a couple
How
other
about
guys.
Nail Yakupov?
Neil Yakupov is the other guy on my list
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
Well,
I
players-
kind of thought that's where you were. I thought that's where you were going with that as well, and I was going to say
No.
Yakupov for me.
Feel free to throw out players. Throw anybody out. It doesn't matter. You could throw out somebody that you thought was just a shit GM too, or something. You know.
As a Ranger fan, I could throw out one player who maybe a lot of you guys never heard of. Okay, but the late Bill Chadwick used to say that this guy couldn't score a goal if he was standing off a pier and the goal was the ocean. The ocean. Okay, his name was Gene Carr, a first-round pick. Okay, and he had the long blonde hair, no helmet. And when he used to skate, the hair used to fly in the air, kind of like Ron Duguay. He didn't have a tenth of the talent of Ron Duguay. And Gene Carr, of course, got traded to Los Angeles, and he didn't do crap there either, by the way. But yeah, Gene Carr, I think, was the biggest flop that I can remember as a Ranger fan. He would be number one.
Okay then.
And that's going back 40, 50 years, but that's how I mean the fact that I remember him.
Yeah.
When I'm
and there's a reason why maybe other people don't, because
yeah. Well, well, you know, in New York, when I was a kid, you know, the New York media always has a habit of overrating everybody. In case you weren't aware of that, I'm sure you were.
A little bit.
I mean, I think
that a little bit.
Yeah, Boston, I think, has the same habit, and Philly does the same thing too.
Sure.
Yeah,
hockey,
you know, when they got him, they were like, "This guy's the next John Rattel," you know, and blah 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 blah. And then Bill Chadwick had to make that comment. This Gene Carr, he's got rocks in his head and he's got hands of stone. He goes to the end of a pier. He couldn't put the puck in the ocean.
That is great. Very well done.
Radio broadcaster saying this.
That's a verbal evisceration right there. All right.
He could skate like the wind.
Yeah. So definitely a good one right there. Rob, another great one with Rick DiPietro, a guy that was signed to a lifelong contract and did fuck all during his entire time with the Islanders. I mean, he had one good year, and then after that was trash, pretty much to the rest of his time.
Yeah. He kept getting hurt, didn't he?
Yes, that too. He did have an injury problem on top of it.
Yeah, I think he was getting hurt a lot, so that may have been an issue.
Yeah. So I think we all learned a valuable lesson on that one. Don't give a lifelong contract to someone who's injury prone. Someone should have told that to Dallas with Tyler Seguin. But anyway, so on to we'll throw on a flop here. How about, of course, everyone knows the famous one of them all, Alexander Daig. Everyone thought he was going to be just a monster. Gets drafted by Ottawa. And, yeah, we all saw what happened there.
We haven't done anything.
Yeah. For some reason, the Flyers picked him up. I don't understand that philosophy there. He did nothing with Philadelphia either. So
they saw something.
How about the worst trades ever?
Worst trades? Ooh.
Yeah, a couple of the worst trades. The worst trade. I'd like to hear your opinion. The worst trade the Flyers ever made. I'll give you the worst trade the Rangers ever made. But what do you think the worst trade the Flyers ever made was? You can also add what do you think the best trade the Flyers ever made was?
Well, that one's easy.
All right. Let me see. The worst trade the Flyers have ever made. You know, I'm going to go with one that actually might be a little subtle, believe it or not. One of the worst trades they ever made, it was a late trade. The Flyers traded a 7th-round pick for a 5th round. No one thought anything of it. That 7th-round pick turned out to be Joe Pavelski.
Oh, jeez. Are you serious?
Yep. Joe Pavelski was a super late pick, and the Sharks wound up grabbing him in the 7th round and turned out to be a franchise player.
Yeah, no. Joe Pavelski was a.
So that turned out to be a pretty bad trade in the end of the day. I don't even know who the Flyers picked. That's how irrelevant that 5th round pick was.
You never know. You'd never know, though. That wouldn't be something you'd even think about.
I mean, yeah. But the only other really awful trade I can think of right off the bat, trading Sergei Bobrovsky away and getting Steve Mason in return. That was pretty bad, too.
Bingo bango.
Yeah,
There it is.
Yeah, that's a bad one. That's a bad one.
Robbie, what about you? You got one?
Well, that was mine. That was certainly my worst trade.
Sorry,
the best
I didn't mean
trade.
to steal that.
It's that obvious. It is that obvious. I mean, also you could say, I believe they did trade Patrick Sharp, correct?
Yes.
They didn't let him go. Like he was traded to the Blackhawks. That was a pretty dumbass deal. And for good or for bad, you know what I mean. It was a great deal. At the time, some people say that it cost Flyers years of Forsberg if they did indeed kept that pick. But I mean the Lindros trade was an organization game changer. You know what I mean? And it made that team a perennial Stanley Cup contender. And then also kind of paralleling that deal with getting Eric Desjardins and John Leclerc. So like combination of those two, I think were two of the best deals.
Weren't they the same trade though? Desjardins and Leclerc, they were separate trades. Okay.
Oh no, they were the same trade.
Yeah,
I'm saying that trade is one trade.
That was a great trade. They robbed. That was
wasn't
from Mark
finished
Recchi,
talking, but go ahead.
Wasn't that from Mark Recchi?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
That was a great trade for the Flyers.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. That trade and
then you got him back.
Interrupt me fucking again, dude.
Right? You got him back. You got him back, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then the other deal being the Eric Desjardins, Eric Lindros deal. I mean, you could. A lot of people might say that might be the worst trade, Matty. You know what I mean? That one could go either way.
I mean, you could.
You got to the Stanley Cup Finals, and you were an elite team with him. So,
honestly, I'll be. I don't know. I wouldn't say that deal would be on the bad side. I mean, we didn't win the cup, but it's like got us there. You know what I mean? Like we were a legit team again. So I can't say that was a bad deal. I mean, how are we supposed to know that we were going to run into a Red Wings team that was going to sweep us in '97? How are we supposed to know that? Most people touted the Red Wings to be crap. Most people thought the Red Wings were choke artists. Because they were up to that point. Yeah, and you're not wrong, Brad. They were choke artists up to that point. But then they finally found the team they could shut down and win the cup off of. Just happened to be us, of course. But anyway.
How about the Reggie Leach trade?
That was a good deal. That's definitely a great deal right there because that just made.
I just don't know who you traded to the.
I don't know either, to be completely honest with you.
But
it might have been. I'm not 100% sure, though. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I think that might have been. That might have even been the best. That might have been better than all of them.
Yeah, that might have been. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Doesn't matter. You got Reggie.
We got Reggie Leach out of it, and we got the LCB line out of it, and ultimately, we wound up kicking ass and taking names in '75 with that line and won another Stanley Cup against the Sabres. So, honestly, whatever we sent to California wasn't important, obviously. All right. So, in terms of that, what would you say is the Rangers' worst and best deal?
Well, there were two deals for the Rangers that were great deals that to me worked out great. The Yager trade when they got Yager for Anson Porter, which obviously the Capitals just wanted to get rid of Yager for whatever reason. And Anson Porter was a pretty good player. I mean, Yager scored 55 goals for the Rangers one year. And the other trade that there are a couple of other ones. Barry Beck for 5 nobodies with the Colorado with the then Kansas City Scouts, who became the Colorado Avalanche. Became the Colorado Rockies. Who are now the Devils.
Right.
That was a pretty good one. They were probably. Oh, and Mika Zibanejad for Derek Brassard. I forgot about that one.
That was a good fleecing right there.
Yeah, and they also got a second round. They also got Ottawa's second round pick in that deal.
Right. Right. You guys made off like kings on that deal.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue maybe the Messier trade was a pretty good trade too, but I mean they did have to give up Bernie Nichols, so it's not like they got him for nothing. So the worst trade they ever made was easy though. Trading Rick Middleton for Ken Hodge. That was the dumbest trade ever in the history of the Rangers.
I could see that. I could see why you would consider that one of their worst deals. Yeah.
Ken Hodge scored 18 goals in his career for the Rangers, and Middleton scored over 400 for the Bruins, and he led the Bruins to Stanley Cup Finals 3 times. Of course, they lost twice to Montreal and once to Edmonton, but that's not his fault.
He was in Boston. At that time, the Bruins were known for getting to the finals and losing in the finals back then. That was just their thing.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately for them, Montreal had probably the greatest dynasty of all time, and they had some ridiculously good players back then. So, I mean, and it was just the Bruins' luck that Ken Dryden decided that law school wasn't for him, and he came back for a couple of years and beat them a couple of more times before he finally retired.
So, with that, in terms of flops, I've got pretty much that. I would say one more, I think, for me that I would like to throw out there. And flop for me wise, to finish it all off, would have to be the Arizona Coyotes. I know they're still around, but let's be honest, they're in full flop territory right now. Like, in terms of a modern day NHL flop of an organization, that's a flop right there. Take a team out of Winnipeg that was not great, by the way. The Jets were not great. They had very few really good seasons. Sure, they made the playoffs here and there, but back then you were divisional based, and so if you snuck in on a 4th spot, you got in and got swept by the Oilers, right? That was basically what it was like back then. Yeah. So you take a team out of there and you put them in Arizona because you feel it's more stable, and shockingly, you get even worse ownership than what you had in Winnipeg. That is just... wow.
Yeah. Keep in mind, though, Winnipeg, when the WHA was around, Winnipeg was the kings of the WHA. They used to win it almost every year.
That is a good point. I mean, they figured out how to master the WHA. They sucked. And, well, okay, not all their fault, because the NHL decided to screw over the WHA teams and make their rosters expansion draft a bit capable. So they decided, we're going to have an expansion draft, and so you're not keeping any of your players. And except Oilers did keep Gretzky, because Gretzky threatened not to play unless he was in Edmonton. And so the NHL said, fine, everybody but Gretzky is on the table for everybody else, basically.
Right. Right. Well, they were also able to. That's right. They ended up getting Mark Messier from the Cincinnati Stingers.
Right.
Wow.
That's a
great reference.
Yeah.
The Cincinnati Stingers were in the WHA,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I mean, I don't know how they ended up getting him, but I guess that they were. If it was expansion, they just picked him, right? Something like that.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, it was just basically that. That's how the NHL treated it. They just said, you know what, everybody's available except Gretzky, and that's how we're going to roll with it. Meanwhile, other players got screwed over. Decent teams that were put together, they pretty much got broken up. And some of them never got back to their former glory because of that reason.
Yeah, that's for sure. But I just wanted to mention that Winnipeg did win the championship in the WHA several times. So
they did.
They were a very successful franchise coming into the NHL, and I remember when they came into the NHL, everybody thought that they would, that would carry over, but it didn't.
No, it did not.
No.
But again, I think the NHL had their hand in making sure it didn't go down that way.
Yeah. Well, if you remember, they also had Ulf Nielsen and Anders Hedberg, and they let the Rangers get them both.
Yes, they did.
I don't remember how exactly that happened, but
I think the NHL might have nullified something. I think that's probably what it was, because knowing them, that's probably what happened.
Yeah, they did some. The NHL did some kind of. It was involved in some type of shenanigans so that they could get those two guys.
And the primary reason why is because the owners, when they saw those WHA teams coming in, they absolutely despised them, and they blamed them for salaries going up, and blamed them for a lot of the expenses being much more higher than they had to be. And so because of that, they decided, okay, fine, we're going to take out all of our frustrations we dealt with in the 70s on these guys now that they are no longer at their own independent.
They were also worried that some of these teams were a hell of a lot better than the NHL teams.
Yes, that's because some of them were.
They were very good teams in that league.
Right.
They were.
Yeah.
There were.
Oh, yeah.
But so that's our biggest flops in the NHL. We'll revisit this topic probably more often than not, because there's so many to talk about. And players, trades, organizations, coaches, there have been a lot of flops that have stumbled, I think is the best way to say it. Not gotten into, but stumbled into the NHL and made a very piss-poor name for themselves in the history books.
Yes.
All right, so that is the second period. On to the third period, brought to you by FanUp. It's the best way to enjoy fantasy sports. Listen, guys, if you want to make some cash on the side, fantasy sports is one of the best ways to do it. The best way to enjoy fantasy sports is daily NFL contests. They'll also have NBA available and NHL available, and of course MLB available. So check that out as well. You can win great prizes. You sign up today and use the promo code A2D for 5,000 bonus points. That's a $50 value. Just go to fanup.app and you can get yourself FanUp and get yourself some cash. And it's about that time I throw out this, because it's a good little heads up to you guys. For $9.99 a month, you can get an A2D membership, appearances on shows, members-only streams, shout-outs, and sports picks, weekly sports picks from the Money Pop podcast in Willy Vegas, which you can take to BetUS, which is, of course, the leading online sports book, and Gleason's, or not Gleason's Bar, but FanUp, my bad. FanUp, and use that to get yourself some side cash and get yourself a little side hustle going next to the day job. Okay, so on to Around the League. Any major news and notes that you guys wanted to bring up and talk about as we started to get a little bit closer to the ending of our off season?
Other than what's news is that some of the guys that aren't signed yet, that's my surprise. My biggest news is that Nazem Kadri hasn't been signed yet.
I think that a lot of that is contract length and expense. It seems to be what's holding it up, really.
I mean, is he going to take less money? He may have to.
I don't know if you know, here's the thing, though. If Kadri wants to, he might still get that contract. He might, if he's not willing to budge on the price. If he's not willing to budge on the price, if he's willing to budge on the length, but not necessarily the price, he might have to settle for going to a team that originally he didn't want to go to. Maybe he might have to go to I don't know, maybe he goes to a Red Wings. I mean, they're an up and coming team, but maybe he wanted to go to a team that's ready to compete now, or maybe he wanted to go to the Islanders. But at the same time, maybe he has to look at those possibilities.
The Islanders can't afford to pay him.
They can't. And then the debate is do you get rid of Barzell and try to get Kadri? Because I think that's not really a good trade-off, you know?
You need to have them both on the same team.
Yeah.
To work. You can't get rid of one. That's just silly. Why you can't do that?
Right.
So
I mean, my personal opinion on that is I just don't think he's willing to budge on that price and that length. And even if he's willing to budge on the length, I think he's willing to not budge on the price. You know, he's only adjusting it. And I would say that's the only thing that's holding it up. So if he really
for $9 million for 8 years,
something like that. I mean, I would say like
I would say he's more like 7. I think he's more like 7 for 6 years.
See, what I think he's trying to do is, I wouldn't be surprised if his agent is also telling him this, cash in on what he did in the playoffs. You know what I mean? And that's what he's trying to do, which I give him credit. He's trying to do that. But the problem is that when you're trying to go for cap-strapped teams, they're not as able to shell out the dough, you know? That's the one problem with the non-salary cap, non-luxury tax NHL here. People got to stay cap compliant. And so that's the issue we're running into here. He might just have to, his agent's just might have to make a phone call to other teams and say, hey, listen, are you willing to pay this? And bring him in. You know, he might have to accept going to a team he doesn't necessarily want to go to if he really wants that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Rob, how do you feel about that?
No, I can concur with that. I can definitely concur.
All right, then. Was there any news and notes you wanted to talk about, Rob, in terms of around the league?
I was gonna go into Jackson Cates, but we already did that.
Oh, okay, then gotcha.
I figured I'd flip the script since like the main bulk of our show was around the league. My around the league was going to be back home. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
I see.
But we talked. It's good we talked about it early when we had more people tuning in.
Gotcha. Well, to just add one little thing into Jackson Cates, where do you see him fitting into the Flyers? Like, do you see him being a guy who comes in and out of the lineup, or do you see him staying in the lineup more steady?
I mean, I perceive him still where I don't think he'll even make this team quite yet. Like, I think he still needs more seasoning with the Phantoms. He could compete for a lower 6 spot. It'll basically depend on a lot of different factors, you know, how other guys do in camp, what the roster looks like at that time. I mean, down the road, long term, like I said earlier in the show, I really like the way the two brothers play together. And I think that Noah has more of a scoring prowess, but I love Jackson's forechecking game, and that's something that this team desperately needs, is a strong forechecker.
No, you are correct in that. That's one of the big issues that they were having last year. So with that, I would say, okay, that concludes around the league. And with that being said, we'll have to keep our eyes on the Kadri situation, see if maybe he goes to a different team than the Islanders, since they seem to be having a problem finding the money. And Jackson Cates, what will we get from him if will we see him at all? Or will we only see him due to injury? Hopefully it's the other, not the injury one. But with that, we will go to our Shootout segment brought to you by the doc himself, Dr. Paul Vidal, over at Specialized Physical Therapy. If you got any aches and pains bothering you, like I hurt my foot, for example, this past week, and I was having to ice and elevate it, I should have been smart, and I should have gone to the doc over at Dr. Paul Vidal, SpecializedPhysicalTherapy.com. You make an appointment with him, go to either Cherry Hill or Burlington, and guess what? My foot probably would have been great after that. I probably would have only been out maybe one day, maybe would have been able to be back up and walking around, but I wasn't smart. I didn't go to the doc. Bry did, though. He was a smart man. He went and got his shoulder taken care of, and it felt like new. So if you got any pains that pop up out of nowhere due to overwork or maybe you overexert, Specialized Physical Therapy, that's where you got to go. Okay, gentlemen, to the shootout segment we go, and I'll start off with hot take of the week.
Well, first of all, my minor hot take of the week is go to the doc, Maddie.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's not me being smart.
Stepping away from the world of hockey for a second, my hot take of the week is, now that this series is wrapped up with this finale on Monday night, I'm going to say Better Call Saul was a better series than Breaking Bad. Don't at me.
Ooh, interesting. Might get you. You might have just earned yourself a hell of a lot of heat.
People love the Breaking Bad, and I do too. But Breaking Call Saul really put it all together. And I mean, it's kind of an unfair comparison I'm bringing up here. I just wanted to be controversial for a second because that's a big debate on Twitter right now and shit like that. And of course, they're going to measure the two against each other, but one's predicated on the other. You know what I mean? It just really fulfills more of the story of Breaking Bad. It's the Breaking Bad universe. So without Breaking Bad, there'd been. But if you did watch Better Call Saul and you saw the progression of Jimmy to Saul, like, it was just fantastic in terms of getting into the psyche and the finale. Like I said, it was one of usually a show that you follow's finale almost always lets you down. This one did not even
Nice.
a long shot.
So it did not Game of Thrones us.
No, sir.
All right, then. Brad, what you got for hot take?
Oh gosh, you know what? It's not hockey, but the Yankees. What the hell is going on with that team? One run tonight. They got shut out the last two games. What the hell is going on? I mean, this is. It's not like, you can understand when they played the Mets why they didn't score a lot of runs. Okay, I get that, but they got shut out by a rookie pitcher on the Red Sox. Then they get shut out last night by like 10 relievers on Tampa Bay, and then they score one run tonight, and it was because of the triple, and then Andahart hits a slow ground ball, and the guy on the third baseman on Tampa Bay couldn't field it. So that's one run in 3 games, and now 11 and 22 in the second half of the season.
I didn't realize that.
How do you go from 40 games over 500 at the All-Star break to really looking like crap and still being 10 games up because, once again, the Orioles beat Toronto? They're still 10 games in first. They're still in first place by 10 games.
Yeah. Well, that's why you build that much of a above 500 record and a game lead to where when the dog days come, and that's what I blame this on for the Yankees. It's just the dog days. I was surprised at that Waka start coming off the IL.
How do you get shut out by Waka?
Right. He stinks.
He's terrible.
They're just tired, man. It's a fatigue. Like, I mean, I'm seeing it right now with my pitching staff. Taijuan Walker just went down a day after Carrasco just went down.
Yeah, Carrasco went down today.
No, Carrasco went down yesterday, and Walker had to lead the game today for back spasms. I was about to hear his post game interview in a second.
Yeah, I saw something where he was running to first base to get an out. He got the out at first base, but he stretched a little bit, and then all of a sudden he stopped, like he was shot or something. I was
Yeah.
like, what the hell is that all? And then all of a sudden the Mets are down 5-0.
Yep. Yeah, they had to bring in fucking the guy that they brought up just today to throw him in because of the save on the bullpen. Back spasms, though. He had issues with the back earlier in the year where he had to keep a heating pad on. So I'm hoping it's not serious. But these are the type of things that happen, and on the hitting side for the Yankees, right? They're just hitting the dog days, man. They got to collect their breath. Carpenter got hurt, right? He had been doing well for them in a starting role, right?
And Stanton.
What's that?
And Stanton.
Oh, and Stan, of course, exactly. I mean, him one of your big boppers in the lineup. That's always tough keeping him healthy. But if you can get him healthy, you know what I mean? Like, if they're still playing like this in September, I'd be a little worried. But August is the dog days, brother.
Oh, I'm worried right now because they're not hitting.
Yeah, I know.
I know. I mean, I just don't understand. You can go by how you can average 6 runs a game in the first half of the season, and then not be able to scoring 1 run in 3 games.
Right.
It's just crazy. So anyway,
now
that I got that out of my system,
my hot take of the
turn it around.
My hot take.
You're a Met fan, you love it, so it's okay.
Not really.
It is.
Yeah.
All right then. So my my hot take of the week for me is that Kadri will wind up with the Ottawa Senators.
The Senators. They get Kadri. They could make the playoffs.
And the reason why I say that, I think they can afford what he wants. And that might actually be where he winds up. Remember how I said earlier he might have to accept to go into a team he didn't want to necessarily go to. When they come a-calling and they're willing to give you that length and that money, all right, I guess I'm an Ottawa Senator now. I'm playing with Giroux.
I did not consider Ottawa, but they have almost $8 million in cap space.
Yeah, they could actually do that.
Yeah.
Buffalo could do it.
Buffalo definitely could. I don't know if he would be willing to accept it for Buffalo if Ottawa comes calling, but
No. God, how bad would that be for Buffalo if Ottawa was able to get a player that they were trying to get?
They just got beat out by Ottawa. Well, it wouldn't be the first time, because if I remember correctly, I think Ottawa beat Buffalo in a couple of playoff series back in the day. So,
Yeah, but Buffalo was good back then, and Ottawa was good back then. So that's different. But right now, though.
But you know what, though? You know what those two teams had in common? They absolutely loved to choke when the chips were down. Because how many times did the Sabres and the Sens lose series? They should have fucking won.
Million of them. Oh, my God. Always.
Yeah. Ottawa, they always lost to Toronto, even though they probably should have beaten Toronto multiple times. And then friggin' Buffalo, for some reason, they would either draw New Jersey and get their asses beat by the Devils, or they'd lose to us, which was nice. Then they'd come back and beat us for some reason. I don't know why we would lose to them. But either way, Buffalo had a terrible habit of drawing teams they'd lose to, too. All right, then. On to our next part of the shootout segment, and that is your favorite team from the Central, to get back to centralized, as Rob said earlier on in the show. Gents, what's your favorite team in the Central? Since, Rob, you came up with centralized, I think you should start, my man.
Well, no big surprise. My favorite team, my fan favorite team, is the Wild. Kaprizov, he's a golden god.
All right. Like it. Love it. Brad, what about you?
Probably Minnesota, because Zuccarello was on the team.
Oh, yeah.
And he's my guy, and I'm still annoyed that they traded him. So if he's on the team, I'm gonna root for Minnesota.
All right then. No sour grapes at all. But On to the team for me in the Central. My favorite team in that, I'm going to go with Colorado. I mean, it's hard to argue against the Cup. I'm not going to. I wouldn't dare do it. I'm going to. I'll give it to Ottawa as my favorite team in the Central.
What a bandwagoner! No.
Oh, hush. Listen, just because I picked Tampa to three-peat does nothing to do with the fact that they won that. All right. So on to our final one, and that is our games that we're not looking forward to coming this season. The games that we are least looking forward to this season. Brad, what game are you least looking forward to for the Rangers?
Am I least looking forward to?
Yes, the one you dread on the schedule.
Well, we have to play Colorado.
Okay. So you're dreading your 2-game series against the Colorado Avalanche, the one in the Garden, and I'm obviously the one in the Pepsi Center.
Absolutely.
All right then.
I'd be crazy not to. I don't dread them against playing against anybody else, but that team, yes.
Okay.
They just murdered us this year.
They murdered a lot of teams, so you're not alone.
True.
All right. Well, Cale McCarr single-handedly murdered the Flyers defense. But anyway, Robbie.
Oh yeah.
What about you, brother? What game you least looking forward to?
Yeah, man. McCarr was a straight 187 on our forwards and defense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting though. The Rangers Avalanche matchups, Georgiev versus Shesterkin. That'll be a good story.
Yeah, I would. And keep in mind though, Shesterkin did not play in either one of those beatdowns against Colorado yet last year either. Georgiev played in both those games. So
smart. Can't be
that adds a little
fuel.
Yeah. They didn't want to mess up his confidence, probably.
Right.
So,
But Matty, for our Flyers though, the games I'm not looking forward to are the games against the Blue Jackets. We already talked about the dynamite first line now. Plus, the fans are just going to be all over the Flyers due to the Gaudreau factor. Anytime he does something, it's going to be magnified. Like he should have been doing that for us, which is just an unfair comparison. How do you know he would be in that same situation with this, lower brow team? I mean, maybe Torts can cause some heat versus old team, against any of them. Matter of fact, that'd be nice against Tampa and the Rangers too, Vancouver. But that will be interesting to battle that back. But they're just not going to be enjoyable games to look forward to.
Yeah, I could agree. I could very much agree on that. For me, the games I'm least looking forward to, I do not look forward to facing the Penguins. I hate facing them when our team sucks because just having to see those fucking assholes beat us, it's like, oh, it just makes me want to strangle someone. I hate losing to the Penguins. I absolutely hate losing to them so much. I just like seeing Crosby have a shit-eating grin on his face because they beat the Flyers. Just like, oh, man, I wanted to backhand him right across the fucking face right then and there. Of course, if I did, his whole team would beat the piss out of me. But anyway, I think Maul could be the first in line. But anyway, so
you may have to wait in line to do that, though. To want to do that, though, I think there'd be a lot of people ahead of you that want to do that to him.
That's a good point. Very good point. Probably every player that's not on the Penguins in the NHL is probably in that line. So
I can't wait when Jacob Trouba plays the Penguins next year.
Oh boy, that'll be interesting.
Did he ever nail Crosby in that check?
He did,
and that was a perfectly legal check. Crosby was had his head down, looking at the puck, and he got clobbered.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
It wasn't the boards; it was an open ice hit. He didn't, and Trouba didn't jump. He hit him with his shoulder.
But Then I think, was that the game that Crosby had that temper tantrum and he threw somebody into the boards, or was that another game? Because I know he didn't get suspended for it, and he should have.
Crosby? No, I don't.
Yeah.
No, he came right off the ice after that.
Oh, okay. I know he had a temper tantrum in one game, and I forget who he was playing. Took somebody down, threw him to the boards, and he did not get suspended for it.
Well, he never gets in trouble for anything he does.
True.
I mean,
But anyway,
Mark, you remember when he slashed Mark Matheau in the glove and took
Yes.
a piece of his finger?
Yep, he didn't get suspended for that either. Yeah.
No. I mean, how hard do you have to slash somebody to do that?
Right. I mean, that's like that was like the modern day equivalent of when Graves whacked Lemieux. You know, when you think about it, it's just reversed. It's the Penguin doing it to a Ranger instead of the opposite way around. You know, so
that was actually Matheau was on the Senators then.
Oh, it was the Senators at the time. Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. It was that series. You're right. I forgot.
It's okay.
But anyway, that'll do it for this edition of the Hockey Happy Hour. We thank everybody for joining us for another fun little romp into the rink here. And next week we will we'll be back with a preview of the Pacific Division. And earlier on in the show, Brad and Bry had a bit of an argument over teams that could be competitive in that division. So that's a little sneak preview of things to come possibly next week. So stay tuned for that.
I wouldn't call it an argument. It's more like just like a minor disagreement.
Minor disagreement? I don't know. Doesn't sound very A2D like. I'm going to call that an argument. So, so next week, ladies and gentlemen, we will have the Pacific Division preview. We'll see what other crazy shenanigans we'll come up with as the week wears on.
If you really want me to make it an argument, I'll pick them to come in last. How's that sound?
Sure. There you go. Go ahead and we'll make that. We'll officially have that ready.
That'll get them all upset.
Right? And make it an unfriendly discussion, and then we come back and we break bread right afterwards. There you go.
Right.
I don't want to do that. I save stuff like that for the internet.
All right.
I always make it a point to try to be as fair as I can on the shows live, because that's kind of why you guys have me on this station to begin with, is because you want an outsider's view of the team, because that way you're not getting the Pollyanna cheerleader effect. You're getting the, well, as a New York fan who's somebody who can't stand our teams, what does he think of these teams? I try to be honest instead of just say, oh, you suck because you're Philadelphia.
Wait, you mean to tell me that we don't have Brad simply to fill a quota, that we have to have one outside person per show on these shows?
I would hope not, but I think it adds fuel to the fire. Besides, while the Eagles are winning, you could actually beat up somebody. I know it's ahead for the Giants,
and it doesn't look very good.
As I said to Rob last night, 3-14 is definitely in our future this year. They're going to be terrible.
But anyway, I don't know. Definitely always enjoy outside opinions. It's always fun to see that. But
just try to have a better record than the Jets. That's all I have.
That's all you ask. Just try to be better than the Jets.
Just be better than the Jets. I mean, is that too much to ask?
It might be.
It might be.
Yeah. All right. So we thank everybody for joining us. And if you do like to support A2D Radio and the Hockey Happy Hour, and you want to continue to do so, you can by going to phillydrinkers.com, A2D. They've always got great fun stuff for T-shirts, Only Bad Stuff Happens in Philadelphia with Gritty on the bottom. And they also have the Quarterback Factory. They have specific show shirts, A2D logo shirts. They've got everything. And not just shirts. They've got mugs. They've got hats like the one Rob's wearing. And plenty of other great stuff that they got over there for you guys. So go check out Philly Drinkers. Great products, great quality too, by the way. The shirts that I have, they don't shrink. So that's a very nice thing to hear. They do not shrink. So
No shrinkage.
So check out Philly Drinkers.
George Costanza.
So check out Philly Drinkers, A2D, and of course, our show sponsor, Manscaped, 20% off with the A2D code, plus free shipping. So upgrade your life, gentlemen, and kick out those old hygiene habits and get rid of the junk funk. Say no to it. And we will see you guys next week right here on A2DRadio.com for an all-new Hockey Happy Hour. Peace and love, everyone.